So welcome to the show, Nick.
Thanks, man.
So Nick and I did a podcast with Colonel Chung. What was that, a month or two ago?
Yeah, about 6 weeks
and
ago.
You're the one that coordinated that and got in touch with me. It was awesome going down there and doing that.
Yeah.
But you were more of like the coordinator.
Yeah.
You didn't really participate in the show much.
Right. By design.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? This dude's cool. You got a lot of experience and a lot of good perspectives. You're a captain in the military right now. And I was like, you know what? Let's have you on my show and go through all the things that I wanted to talk about with you that we didn't get a chance to. So thanks for making the drive up.
Man, thrilled to be up here, man. Seriously. I just, candles lit, bedroom, a nice table. I was like, am I coming to party or do a podcast? Like, what's going on?
Hey, we don't have the Joe Rogan studio like you guys have.
I like this more than the Joe Rogan studio. This is like, this is really hospitable. So.
It's funny because this is episode 30, right? Or 31. Okay. I always forget. That's why I don't announce it anymore because I always get it confused.
Right.
But, I'm still new to the podcast world. So we got all the equipment and, learned how to do the production and all that stuff. And the podcast studio has been the last thing. So I have some ideas. I think we're going to actually build it out of a Connex box.
That's what you're saying. That's awesome.
Yeah. And put it at my gym. But for now, we're bouncing back and forth between my bedroom and my academy. So
if you do get the Connex and I come back on, I want to do it in the bedroom again. That's the only, that's the only thing that I'll accept from here on out.
All right.
Anything less is not acceptable.
That works for me, man. So like I do with all my guests, I just like you give an opportunity to introduce yourself, say where you came from and what you're doing and all that stuff. So
yeah, man. I'm Nick Ondovzik. I'm a company commander in the U.S. Army. Had some awesome opportunities. I'm not from a military family. I'm from a blue collar suburb of Flint, Michigan. So grew up in the auto industry of Michigan. Went to college, did a short stint in grad school, and then joined the Army and enlisted. I did a language program for about a year, and then I went to officer candidate school. So from there, I was a PL, did the standard infantry route, went to Ranger school, had some cool opportunities at Fort Benning, went to Hawaii as a platoon leader in EXO, went back to Georgia, served some time, about 3 years there, and now I'm at Fort Lewis.
Okay, man. So when you were going through college, were you anticipating going into the military?
Never.
No.
I never even thought of it. And that's the strange thing too, right? Like I talked to my guys about this and everyone always talks have a 5-year plan. And that's great. That's great. But there's also opportunities that you don't see. And then if you're closed off to them, you won't see what presents itself. Right. So I got out of college. I had a roommate who was a 275 guy, actually your era. And we talked about it and the team aspect was really cool to me. It was really interesting. And I got out of college and looked at 20 years of working in an office and was like, dude, no way.
No way.
There's no way. It was that or being a deckhand on a fishing boat in Alaska or rock climbing or something. But I just couldn't at that point. There was something that I missed. The team aspect was really cool. But I never thought of the military. I thought of the Peace Corps. I thought of teaching. Yeah. Coaching football, but military never crossed my mind and not out of anything other than ignorance.
Well, one thing that you just said that I kind of keyed in on was a lot of people say to have a 5-year plan. Yeah. But then that might stifle the opportunity to see something that pops up.
Absolutely.
And you might need to turn left or right.
Absolutely.
And it was the same for me going in the military. I don't even think I really thought about it or considered it. Yeah. I didn't know anything about it. My dad got drafted and, so I knew a little bit about from his experience, but I never saw myself going down that path until my senior year. And it just boiled down to what do I want to do? And I was like, well, I know I hate school.
Right.
That's an absolute in my life. And just like you, I'm not ready to go sit in an office or shovel gravel for some construction company. There has to be better things out there for me. Right. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just go talk to a recruiter. And it's funny because a lot of guys talk about this burning desire to serve their country, or it's just, they have this patriotic vision. I was just a lost 18-year-old.
100%.
And I don't know why I did this, but I was like, you know what? If I'm going to give 4 years to something, let's try and make the most out of this 4 years. Yeah. And so I started looking at the hardest things to do. And so I came to the determination that I wanted to be an Army Ranger or a Navy SEAL. looking back on it, I didn't even know what either of those did. You know what I mean?
Like volleyball. So you went the Ranger route.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, your spike wasn't great, so you went Ranger route.
No, the funny thing is I went and talked to the Navy recruiter, and the dude was just a dork.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, hey, thanks for coming in. Let's
right.
and
let's put you on a sub."
Yeah, well, he was immediately like, "Hey, I want you to go to MEPS tomorrow. We can get you signed up by this weekend and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Listen, man, like I'm putting my feelers out there right now."
Right.
And he was so pushy that it was like irritating.
Sure.
And then I went and talked to the Army guys, and there was a dude in there with a Ranger tab.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And started talking to him, and they were like kicked back and they were cool. And they're like, "Yeah, no rush, man. Like whenever you want to sit down and talk with us," he goes, "or if you want to go out to dinner, like, or our office hits I think they went to a Mariners game once a month or something." He's like, "Hey, if you want to come roll with us to that." It seemed a lot more low key,
right?
But it was literally basing my military career off of the vibe of two different people.
Sure.
You know, but that's what happened, because when you're 17 and you have two people to judge each service by,
right,
that's what you do.
Right.
And ended up going into the Army because of that, and have no regrets.
What year did you go in?
I went in 99.
99.
So okay. I graduated in August.
Okay.
Or no, I graduated in June and then went in August.
Okay.
That's
crazy.
Dude, went in August, and then I showed up to Fort Benning to 30th AG. Did you ever go through that place as an officer?
Baby. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where hopes and dreams gonna die.
Dude, we get to 30th AG, and they have like a platoon or company size formation, and they're like, "Listen, guys, your basic training week 1 is not scheduled to start until September 18th. They sent you down here 6 weeks early." And we're like, "Oh, okay."
Right.
So guess what we were doing? Painting School of a Soldier.
Hell yeah.
Doing all the landscaping on Benning and
Hell
stuff.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, this wasn't a mistake.
Right.
They brought us down here because they got extra labor
yeah, exactly.
all summer.
Yeah, they're like, "Oops, hey, scheduling was weird. We never do this.
Yeah.
Like, we never mess up scheduling." But
and so, but they didn't. We didn't live at 30th AG that whole time. They sent us down to. I was Bravo Company 119.
Yeah.
And that's where we had our 6 0 weeks. And it was bizarre because a lot of it was used for details, like I was saying, but then a lot of it was, they're like, "Okay, well, we have this block of time where nothing's scheduled." So a drill sergeant would take us out and like show us land nav.
That's awesome.
Or show us like, like the basic marksmanship stuff that you could do in the barracks and,
dime washers.
Yeah, that kind of
box,
stuff.
Yeah.
And so by the time week 1 started, dude, we were like salty dogs, man.
Right.
Like we knew a lot as far as in comparison to what most people know starting basic training.
Right.
You know?
Were you like the Oracle guys at the end of 30th AG where you're like sunken eyes, like telling the stories?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what it's like, man.
That's so funny you say that, because I always joke about when you show up to 30th AG.
Yeah.
There's some dude that's been there
100% for like a year.
A year. Yeah, dude. And he knows.
Like when you go down range.
Yeah, exactly. He knows everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like,
and
did you talk to that guy?
And the funny thing is at the time you're like, "Oh, this dude's dialed in. He knows what's going on.
Super squared away."
And now looking back, okay, why was he there for so long?
Right.
Shitbag.
Right. Here's 115 pounds of like fucking thick glasses. Like,
Yeah. Man, I heard, I think every cycle has the story of a guy doing a swan dive over the edge and committing suicide at 30th AG.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's like part of,
which is, we can neither confirm nor deny, because 30th AG is like where souls and happiness go to die. If anyone's listening from 30th AG, it's a great organization and it's awesome.
yeah, it's necessary.
It's super necessary.
But and so what it is, I guess we're talking about it. Most people have no idea.
Right.
It's your initial in-processing to boot camp.
It's intake.
Yeah, it's intake. So when you show up to Fort Benning, you get off the plane and they bus you to 30th AG. And then that's where you start your, like, you get your equipment, you get your shots and get your haircut and all that stuff.
But people don't understand, like there's a lot that goes into it, and you don't see it until you're a few years in, like until you start to have soldiers. But like, life insurance, stuff like that, like ensuring that everything is aligned for them to go into this training.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen. Like you don't just get off the bus from Detroit, Michigan, like with long hair and like a Tigers jersey. And they're like, "All right, you're a soldier now." Like, there's a transition period. And that's what 30th AG does. So, the ebb and flow of soldiers coming into the Army affects how intake happens.
Mm-hmm.
what I'm getting at is if you're there as a soldier, it's very not fun.
Yeah, it's terrible.
No, it's the worst.
I went back to Fort Benning in, I think it was like 2012.
Okay.
And just walked around and reminisced about everything. Yeah. And sure enough, I had to visit 30th AG, and it was just like, oh,
same thing, man. Same thing.
Yeah.
That same holdover is still there, like 12 years later.
So as an officer, you graduate college, you decide you want to go in the military, and you just go through a normal recruitment process and get OCS as like part of your enlistment package. Is that what?
I had a really weird track. I graduated college. I was a graduate assistant for a football team, for a Division I football team. It's like what I wanted to do, strength coaching athletes in like the competitive realm. The coaches left, went to a different school. And then like I went into the recruiter's office and was like, hey, I want to be a Ranger, just a total moron, right? Like just a moron. Like you can just tell the recruiters like, oh yeah, baby, here we go.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Everybody says that to their recruiter.
Absolutely.
But guess what you did? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. But like, I think the moral of the story is like, I did no research. Like I talked to the guy from 275. He's like, you want to be a Ranger? And I was like, I want to be a Ranger. Like I'm just repeating. I had no idea what it did or, what it
entailed.
Yeah, sure. And I did the same thing. Like I went to the Navy office first, to go through the SEAL program, and like that fell through. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go talk to the Marines. And like, I walked in, they're like, turn around. Like the second I walked in, I was like, that's not cool, Wait,
the Marines turned you out of their office?
Yeah, I had leg tattoos, or I have leg tattoos. And I did in college, and I walked in shorts, and he literally goes, nope. The second I walked in, I was like, that dude parties. That guy gets it, And then I talked to the Air Force a little bit.
PJ, is that what you're thinking?
PJ. But like, I didn't really know the difference between officer and enlisted.
Yeah.
Like I truly didn't. Like I think it's not a common idea, because I talk to people back home and I'm like, yeah, I'm an infantry officer. And they're like, so like you yell at people? I'm like, mostly my PLs. Like I yell at them. That's about it.
Well, dude, I mean, I guess we can circle back to that, but that'd be a good thing to kind of unpack, because a lot of people reach out to me because of the show with questions about joining the military.
Absolutely.
So I've had one other officer on, but she was a naval officer. Okay. Pretty far removed from like my community. Yeah. So it'd be good for you to really explain like what an officer is.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Yeah. Okay. Cause that's I didn't know, man. So I went to this recruiter, and I literally told him, I was like, I want to be a Ranger. And it was so ridiculous. Like what a moron, cause that recruiter is just like, oh yeah, baby. Like, I'm getting my numbers this month, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And I just graduated from college, and he's like, oh yeah, like this is perfect. I got a college graduate and everything. And cause there are certain numbers, or not numbers, but like demographics and quotas or whatever. I've never been a recruiter, so I don't want to speak on their behalf, but, talking to him more about it, he's like, do you want to be an officer? You have a degree. I was like, I don't care. Like, can I go do this thing that I want to do still? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, let's do this. So I initially enlisted as an officer candidate, but I dropped out of the pipeline because they were offering this like strategic language program to study Mandarin for a year. Mm-hmm. So I was at E4, living in the barracks, studying Mandarin. This is kind of funny. They're like, yeah, it's a DLI program, and DLI is Monterey.
What's
Defense Language Institute, I think.
Okay.
So it's like where anyone goes to learn languages, like, SF dudes.
Got it. Yeah.
I think they do it at Bragg now, but that's irrelevant.
So you're saying you're an E4 living in the barracks. Yeah. So that means you joined and went the enlisted route.
Yeah.
With the understanding that after this program, you would get to become commissioned.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So I went through basic training. And I was a specialist in this language program and studied Mandarin for a year, 8 hours a day.
Dude, sounds exciting.
Dude, it was the worst thing I've done in my entire life. It was so difficult. Like the first test I crushed it, and I'm like, dude, I'm fluent. Like I got it figured out, And like, then they started like only speaking Mandarin. I was like, hey, let's go back to that first test.
Yeah.
Like, let's do that again, So it was like a year where I just like worked out and like kind of studied Mandarin, and they ended up getting rid of the program. But I have it on my report card now, and I tested for it or whatever, but never used it again.
How's your Mandarin right now?
Dude,
Non-existent.
Yeah, as good as yours. Like, it's not great. I mean, this was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But like even a year after it, like someone could have said something to me. I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what was that?
Yeah, that's me too, man. I'm terrible at learning languages.
And that's the thing. Like I'm pretty decent at learning languages. So I was like, dude, I'm going to crush this program. And like, it was my first exposure to the Army and like how the programs are. And like, they say drinking from a fire hose and like,
yeah,
dude, I'm not at Michigan State anymore. Like this is a real deal, you know? So yeah, so I graduated that program and then I went to officer candidate school where you train to be an officer. So you're either a prior service soldier from any branch, and then you come in to become an Army officer. And the other track is you're a civilian that goes to officer candidate school to become an officer. So the three commissioning sources are West Point, ROTC, which is the largest one, and then officer candidate school.
Got it.
And there's some smaller ones. They'll do like a direct commission with like lawyers, doctors, you know, like people with professional degrees.
Yeah, that dude. Do you listen to Andy Stump?
I do. Yeah.
So he got commissioned as an officer through some weird like
battlefield commission.
Yeah, something
like World
crazy.
War II. Yeah.
And he doesn't have college, and he said he like got approached by some opportunity. I think he was an E7.
Okay.
I might be wrong, either E6 or E7, but promoting in the enlisted rank, there was some roadblock put up, and it was because he got hurt. He got shot
on a deployment.
Yeah, so he couldn't fill a specific billet that I needed to. So they're like, well, we can make you an officer.
Right.
I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude?
Right. Which like should tell you about the officer corps. Like, hey.
So there's ROTC, there's West Point, there's OCS, and then there's whatever back door Andy Stump figured out.
He's like, yeah, I was an NCO yesterday, but I can be a good lieutenant now. Like, yeah, that makes sense, right?
So when you went to OCS, how long, like talk about that program.
Yeah. So OCS, I want to say it's 22 weeks. And like I said, there's two pools of people. There's three pools of people. So they're either soldiers that were enlisted that become officers through OCS. The other pool are different branches. So Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever, enlisted that want to become Army officers. For whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
Like job promotion, job availability, duty stations. And then the third pool is civilians that come off the street, go through basic training, and then do the officer candidate school route. So,
got it.
I mean, it's the fastest route to commission. I'm biased. I think it's the best, but
yeah. Is the typical like OCS enlistment agreement, you go through basic and then literally you go right from basic to OCS? Yeah,
there might be a holdover time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that's a pipeline.
Exactly. Okay. Yep. So from basic to OCS. And then they send you like to your BOL, like your basic officer leadership course. So like OCS is where they like determine like you can be an officer, right? And then at the end of it, you become an officer. But after that, you're non-branch qualified.
Got it.
So you don't have a job yet. So you go to whatever your job qualification is. And for me, it was the infantry.
Are those called MOSs in the officer world?
I think so.
It still is?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I call them branches, but yeah, I think it's MOS or like AOC, I think. I don't really remember. I'm like the worst officer, man. Like,
yeah, right, dude.
I'm terrible at it,
So I guess it'd be a good time to just kind of explain what the difference of officer versus enlisted is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would turn it back on you, like your time in the Ranger Regiment. Like, what did you do? And I think that's the best way to describe it.
Well, I would describe it as this. Basically, if you go in as an enlisted soldier, you are going to be part of the warfighting machine. You are going to be carrying a machine gun. You're going to be breaching doors. You're going to be, taking lead on a patrol as a point man. And they need, that's why a platoon is a 30-man sized element. They need 30 warfighters to go complete or conduct operations. Yeah. Obviously, if a platoon size operation, and if it's a company size, you're going to need 100, but so on and so on. But for each element of soldiers, they need leadership. And so leadership is broken down in the platoon at a lot of different levels. You have your team leaders, your squad leaders, and then your platoon sergeant. But then that is overseen by one individual known as the PL, who's the platoon leader, and he is an officer. So he's typically a lieutenant, and then company commanders are typically captains. And they're basically the I would say just the oversight for the overall operation.
Yeah.
And that's who makes the calls, and that's who disseminates information, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Like philosophically, we could talk about a lot of different roles for officers first enlisted, but, you know, as a team leader, like when you were an E5 team leader, like what were your roles? Like how many people did you have?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm turning it back on.
No,
you.
no, four.
Endless endeavor with Nick on Dopsic.
No. Yeah. I mean, as a team leader, I had a rifleman, a 203 gunner, a saw gunner, and then sometimes a machine gun team attached, you know, and that just in Afghanistan, we would do team sized operations.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's funny looking back on it. 22-year-old Sergeant Anderson leading patrols in Afghanistan.
Right. On the border, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Walking and like multi-day operations. And I'm senior man out there. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
I didn't feel like that at the time. It was like, yeah, let's go.
Let's go party.
And now I look at like my jiu-jitsu academy and the guys that are like 22 years old, they feel like kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would typically be in charge of that size element.
Yeah.
But more often than not, we would be out as a squad. So that would be 2 teams, and then the squad leader would be the senior NCO.
Yeah.
And more often than not, the PL would be back at the safe house.
Yeah.
He was kind of, he was controlling everything logistically, but not necessarily like on the battlefield, you know?
Especially for decentralized operations like that. Like, again, philosophically, like you can talk about like, you know, different doctrinal tasks that require different officer locations, like different officer placement, like battlefield placement.
Yep.
But a team leader though, like you're doing everything with those guys.
Yeah.
Like, you're checking their barracks in the morning.
Yep. I mean, in Afghanistan, especially, like we lived, slept, ate, even shit together. You know what I mean? It's like, 100%. Hey, I got to go take a shit. All right. Well, so-and-so is going to go with you for security.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right.
You know, I talk about that with people that have never served in the military. It's like, well, when they started talking about sending females to Ranger school, I mean, and I wasn't saying this disparagingly, I was being completely serious. How's the slit trench going to work now?
Yeah, logistically, yeah.
Like seriously, how's the slit trench going to work? Because for those of you who don't know what a slit trench is,
it's awesome. First of all,
in the middle of a patrol base. So when you're out in the field and you're conducting patrols, and you put the platoon down for the night in what we call a patrol base, you set up your machine guns, and then everybody sets in a perimeter, and you have security looking outward. And right in the middle of the patrol base, you dig what's called a slit trench, and it's where you shit and it's where you piss.
It's a shitter, baby.
Yeah. And when you're shitting, there might be, I mean, whoever wants to watch you shit can watch you shit.
That was like that was my schedule. It was like during the op order brief in Ranger school. I was like, it's shitting time. All right. I'd be like, Ranger, are you serious right now? I'd be like, oh yeah.
And so, I mean, you shit, eat, sleep, all this stuff with the same guys. And that's just how it is, you know? And so I remember thinking like, oh, now women are in the patrol base. Are they do they have fucking like porta potties now, or are they just living hard and hitting the slit trench like the rest of us?
So I went through in 2013, so right before the transition. From what I understand, they'd like put ponchos up, and you know, there's like a partition, I guess.
Got it. Okay.
I did a golden walk with my buddy who was an RI about 3 years ago, but like it was his golden walk, so we just blew everyone out of the patrol base. I didn't even look at it. I was like,
what's golden walk? His last one?
Yeah, his last one. Yeah. And it's either like a massacre or it's like a really easy one. There's usually food at the end of it.
Yeah.
But you just fucking destroy them.
So when you get RD'd and blown out of the patrol base, do you got to break down the partition shitter?
I think so. Yeah, right. Exactly. Like someone's waking up, like getting the 240. And like, don't forget the shitter.
when the PL is given the distance direction for the rally point.
He's like, just stand by.
Yeah, we'll actually get the shitter down too. Oh, that's hilarious, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to it. So, you know, the enlisted officer thing, we got on a shitter tangent there. It's like the most infantry thing of all time. But you know, the team leaders are the enlisted first line leaders. And like, that's like when you showed up to 275 as a private, like who's the first person?
Yeah. You're literally, when you show up as a private, your team leader comes up into your room and he's like, dump your duffel bag out, get all your kit out. And you sit there and you tie everything down. You put all your gear together, and mine was Sergeant Lynch, and I'll never forget him. And he was a fucking stud.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was still the era where when you showed up as a new guy, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
You know, and he smoked the shit out of us.
Yeah.
And, but he was a team leader that balanced smoking the shit out of you, but also he cared about you.
Right.
You know? And then shortly after that, I had another team leader that didn't balance that very well.
Right.
He really enjoyed smoking the shit out of you, and at the time I didn't quite realize it because I'm a 19-year-old private.
Right.
But looking back on it, he wasn't doing his job as a team leader.
Right.
You know, like you should be ready to die for your men.
Absolutely.
And they should be under your wing, and you should be imparting every bit of knowledge that you can on them.
100%.
And
100%.
If you're not doing that, I don't think you should be a Ranger Regiment team leader.
Yeah.
But, and I've talked about it on the show a lot. I went through 3 team leaders, and my last one, really, it changed my life, dude. His leadership style to this day, I draw from.
Yeah.
Because he approached leadership as, I care about you, you're important to me, but he was still hard as nails.
Yeah.
But he didn't have to project that hardness in how he spoke to you.
Sure.
He showed it in his PT. He showed it in how he operated. And it was just a different thing. And I remember at the time as 19, 20, whatever it was, looking at this guy and like, oh, okay, this is what leadership is, and starting to like connect the dots as what leadership is. And that's something that I often think about. It might be difficult for an officer to really learn sound leadership because I'm not saying you can't learn it, but I feel like a guy that grew up as a private, man, he got to sit back. His eyes were open. His mouth was shut, in just taking all this in and seeing what he thinks works, what he thinks doesn't work, all while having zero responsibilities, you know, outside of what you're told to do, which that's easy, right?
Right.
Being a private it might be like physically and emotionally hard, but as far as, hey, go there, do this, roger that. Like, it's not a difficult, it's most of the things that you're going to go through as a private, you're given clear and concise directions. And I learned a lot about leadership before I was an E5.
Yeah.
Especially as an E4 too, because now I had a Ranger tab.
Yeah.
And the E5s were now your friends. And so you were kind of like your team leader's right-hand man. And he would be like, hey, I need to grab the privates and go do this. And even though you might be grabbing 3 guys and go and doing some detail, it's starting to learn just a little bit about leadership incrementally. Yeah. You know? And so you guys go through OCS, and I'm not saying OCS isn't a great course. I've never been through it, but I'm assuming it is.
It's fine. It does exactly what it needs to do.
But it's a training environment.
It's exactly right.
The first time you're in an operational element, literally the first time you're in charge.
Yeah.
That has to be weird, huh?
I mean, it depends, right? Like it's individual experiences. And I always draw back to this, but like, it goes back to self-awareness too. Like how self-aware, I was a little older, man. I was like 25 when I enlisted.
Yeah. Okay.
20. Yeah. I was 25 as a second lieutenant, which is like ancient. You know, they're like, oh man, your knees are going to hold up at 25. Because a lot of these dudes are 21 out of college. And I was a moron out of college. Like I'm definitely not like in Mensa now, you know, like I'm not doing great, but like, but you know, I've learned a lot through experience. And like when you take that platoon for the first time, you're right. Like you have 30 dudes that you're in charge of. And the way that I've heard it best is that as an officer, you manage 2 things. An infantry officer, especially, you manage risk and violence, right? So you mitigate risk and you control violence at points where it's needed. So I'm in a unique position now as a company commander where I can interview new platoon leaders. And I always ask them, like, what do you bring to the table? Like, you've been in the Army since breakfast. What do you bring to the table right now?
Yeah.
And they're always like, you know, I read Simon Sinek and I run really fast. And I'm like, okay, so you do exactly what you're supposed to do as a platoon leader. What I'm getting at is like, you don't have experience.
Yeah.
Like you just don't, right? So like you need to understand doctrine. You need to be an expert of the science of this. It's like being a journeyman, like an apprentice for an electrician.
Yeah.
Like you don't know shit in your first year. Like you better know the science, man. And so the platoon leader needs to understand this doctrine in order to apply it, because the art exists in his NCOs through their experience. Right? Like you have dudes with 14 combat deployments.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like I had NCOs who, while I was at Michigan State going to football games, they were in Nangarhar banging targets.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy thing to think about that you're in charge of those guys. But the second that you can, there's a balance between setting it aside and learning everything from them and then understanding the science. But like, you just need to be self-aware enough to know that you know nothing, and to take advice and to take, mentorship from subordinates, and then make a collective plan, if that makes sense. I just like rambled.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. Like you're saying, like draw from your subordinates' experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, any officer that's not willing to do that,
you're going to get eaten alive.
Yeah. You're first of all, you're out of touch with reality. But second of all, for you to be successful, and I've seen this over and over when I was, private through NCO, your men have to respect you.
Yeah.
And if you show up on day one and everybody knows that you don't know shit and you're acting like you're the man, well, immediately everyone's going to be looking at you a little sideways.
For sure.
And at least in Ranger Regiment, a PL has to be a PL somewhere else before he gets to be a PL in the regiment.
Exactly.
So he has to do a test run somewhere else,
exactly
basically.
Right. Yeah.
But still, you're still new to the regiment, and it's different.
A new beast, man.
It's a new beast.
Yeah.
I mean, I know NCOs that came in to take over teams or squads, and even that was tough.
For sure.
Because people are looking at them like, what? You're from the 101st?
Right.
Who the fuck are you?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Amongst a majority of homegrown Rangers, because most people in the Ranger Regiment, I would say E1 through E6 have never left the regiment.
Right.
E6 is where guys start to fly the coop and go be a drill sergeant or an RI or
charter time
or promote to E7 and take a platoon somewhere else, but to show up as a new officer there, I've always thought like that just must be like a pretty intimidating experience,
Yeah. I mean,
maybe I'm just a bitch, dude.
No. Yeah. I mean,
well, no, I also think
your ears prove you're not. So.
I also think of it like, because I mean, I was in the military for about 5 years, and then I contracted for another 5, which for the most part was just still being in the military. It was structured very similarly, deployments, the guys you were living with. And I remember thinking like, not until I was like 30 years old, where I was like, you know what? I think maybe I should go be a PL.
Yeah.
Like maybe I should entertain that route of going back and doing that. Because at this point in time, 10 years of experience, I feel like I could stand up in front of a platoon of men and unite them and bring them leadership and bring them like my experience. But shy of that, it just seems like it would be intimidating.
It's intimidating. I had a point to make. I think I kind of lost it, but like, man, you just...
Did I take your thought right from you?
No. I mean,
ramble?
No. I mean, it was perfect, right? Like, because you nailed it. If you come in and you think that you know everything, like you just don't, man. Like you've been in since breakfast, like you don't know everything.
Yeah.
And cultures change, and climates change, and I think it's the same in the civilian world. I don't know. I didn't spend a lot of professional time in the civilian world, but like, you need to read atmospherics and you need to talk to people who've been there. And I can tell you right now, like as a platoon leader, your biggest supporter is going to be your first sergeant, and that's super intimidating as a platoon leader talking to like this god, right? Like this.
Yeah. He's been in the Army for 15 years or whatever.
Yeah. Right. If you have a good one, he's a maniac.
Yeah.
He's 38, 40 years old and he's a freak, absolute freak. But like, he's going to be your biggest supporter and he's going to give you those atmospherics because not all NCOs in your platoon are created equal. I always say it, like if you have 4 squad leaders, and this is conventional Army, if you have 4 squad leaders, 1 sucks straight up.
That's tough, man.
1 sucks, 2 exist, and the last one pulls the slack of everyone else. And I'm not saying anything about the NCO Corps. It's just a strength by numbers thing, right? So like, you need to know which ones to pull from. And you need to know which ones are your workhorses and also how to leverage them and like use their experience and not burn them out. And on the other side of that coin, you need to know which one sucks because dude, it's just human, right? Like one of them probably isn't great. And you need to know which one that is because as we're talking before the show starts, like a combat patch doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean a goddamn thing.
Not a thing.
Yeah.
Like you went overseas.
You know what a combat patch means? That you didn't go AWOL.
Exactly. Dude, I tell my guys this all the time. Like you stay in long enough and you'll go to combat. I promise you.
Well, and the other thing that we talked about before we started recording is a combat patch not all combat patches are created equally.
No.
I got a combat scroll and a CIB.
Yeah.
Because I was in Afghanistan for 9 months. We got, the platoon got IED'd one time.
Yeah.
And then we got some incoming and some rockets. And that was it.
Yeah.
I didn't shoot anybody. I didn't take any type of, like small arms fire. I didn't get blown up personally. But because the orders are cut for like the company size element, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, it depends how you do it.
Yeah, I get home and they're like, all right, here's your CIB. And I remember thinking like, almost like, man, CIB is like a cherished thing. You know what I mean? Like World War II veterans that stormed the beaches pinned on CIBs.
What was it like in 99 seeing a CIB?
Oh, yeah. The dude is a legend.
You're like, this dude has killed thousands of people.
Yeah. He patrolled around Afghanistan for 9 months and never fired his rifle, you know? And you know what's funny is I didn't see like real combat until 2004 in Ramadi.
Oh, man, I bet.
And, I remember thinking like, okay, now my CIB is validated.
Yeah, right.
Even though the orders of that CIB have nothing to do with Ramadi, Iraq, I was finally like, okay, well now I know what it's like to get ambushed.
It's getting forged by fire. Right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's what I think you said it too. Like you don't train for this. Like you don't train to go play in the Super Bowl and never play in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, right? It's terrible. Like you want to go do that stuff.
Like it takes a certain person to be like, I'm going to jump out of airplanes. I'm going to go be a Ranger or go be a Marine, go through buds or whatever. And then they're like, yeah, we're going to just do like a training rotation once a year in the Philippines. You're like, what?
Yeah, no.
You know? So like you want that forge and fire experience or trial by fire.
Well, and the thing is like, there's a lot of routes in the military. Like if you want to go into the military because of the GI Bill and you want your college paid for, and I'm not saying that's not a good option. That's great.
Dude, it's awesome. It's awesome.
There's a lot of avenues that you can go that don't involve kicking a door and shooting someone in the face.
Absolutely.
So when you say I want to be a Ranger or a Navy SEAL, typically you want to kick a door and shoot someone in the face.
Exactly right.
You know, exactly so right. If that's something that you're aspiring to do, and then you literally sign up, you go through all this training, you've dedicated years of your life to it, and then it never happens. It's a strange spot to be in.
Super disillusioned. Yeah. I mean, it's tough for guys.
I mean, the truth is when I was a young private and, as soon as, like I said, I graduated Ranger School in 9/11. So the day I became a specialist, I knew we were going to war.
That's
right?
Crazy.
But when I was going through Ranger School or when I was a private in the regiment, war wasn't even a real thing.
Right.
Like we trained for it and we talked about it and we were like, yeah, we're going to go to Colombia and we're going to do going to do a hit on the FARC's cocaine.
Counter narco.
Yeah. Like that. And that was the regiment's focus.
Yeah.
Like most of our training was for the FARC in Colombia.
Yeah.
And, but I never really, I don't think I ever really thought it was going to happen.
And that's the point, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. Like
and I remember I told you the story last time is that my company commander at the time, his name was Captain Donahue.
Legend. Yeah.
And it's funny because he's still a legend and he had a company formation and this was well before 9/11. And he's like, listen, Rangers, this is something I've been thinking about. This is important. I want you guys to really understand because you need to be in the mindset. 50% of the men standing in this formation right now, he's like, look to your left, look to your right. One of you guys is going to serve in combat.
Yep.
And he goes, and the reason that I'm saying this is because if you read and you study, you understand history repeats itself. The regiment's ready. It's time for the regiment to go to war.
Yep.
And he goes, and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Nostradamus, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
How prophetic.
Yeah.
That dude's also a legend. Like,
yeah.
That dude's a monster.
You know, what's funny is I was a young private and I remember this like it was yesterday. The new 275 has all new barracks now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was when it was the old barracks or the old, the barracks and the company headquarters were like all co-located. Right. And so I was walking in and I had like 2 hands full of equipment. I don't remember what I was carrying. And, Captain Donahue walked by me and I was brand new. So I was like panicking, right? Because I know I'm supposed to salute him, but my hands are full of this stuff.
Let's throw it away.
And I'm like, and he saw me hesitating and he goes, get down and do some push-ups. You knew what to do.
Did he really?
And then, so then I was just like, oh man, like I let him down, dude.
That dude's a monster. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
you got smoked by Donahue.
Yeah, I did, dude.
That's awesome.
As a brand new private,
man.
No, it's cool that we're circling to the company commander position, because both company commanders and PLs, I think one thing that may not be understood on the outside looking in is that officer a lot of times sets the tone
100% for
the whole platoon,
dude, 100%.
The whole company,
100%.
And I've had I was really lucky with PLs. I've had I wouldn't say, maybe my first PL wasn't the best, but I was also a very young private, so it's hard to kind of understand what's going on. But my next 2 PLs were studs, and I had a guy. His name was Lieutenant Satterlin. He actually got pinned full bird like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So, but he went E1 through E5 first, then switched over and became an officer, and he was my lieutenant all through Afghanistan. And so, having that guy lead from the front, like his whole mindset when we were deployed is, dude, we're Rangers in Afghanistan. We're working.
Yeah.
Period. We're not sitting around. You're not going to have your Game Boys out on your cots just waiting for some operation to come down the pipe. If something's not actively going on, we're going to make something go on.
Right.
And so we were out patrolling every single day, all week, all month for 9 months, or 6 months rather, because 3 of those we were QRF. Oof. But, and I remember at the time, people were like, man, are we ever going to get a fucking break, dude? But looking back on it, he was, just like you said, idle hands, right?
Yeah, man.
He was keeping Ranger busy.
Yeah.
And if you did want to get in the fight and you did want to know your battle space, you got to be out there.
Right.
And he led from the front the whole time. And looking back on that, that is why that deployment went so well.
I was about to say, like, there might be a piece of that, like, you don't know how poorly it could have gone had you not been so proactive.
I say that all the time.
Right? Like,
we did all kinds of like just proact patrols, and then we would do use of force, or not show of force stuff too.
Yep.
And like have fucking bombers fly over,
rip in,
and like drop some ordnance on a mountaintop and stuff, and just. Or you would, you'd go to a village and they'd see you patrolling through, and then you'd call and have like an A-10 do a fucking strife over or whatever. And then they're realizing like, oh, these guys bring like this shit from Starship Troopers.
Right.
And you're actually right, because as soon as we left that safe house and we turned it over to the 82nd,
got ripped up, probably.
Got fucking torn up, dude. Yeah. And so I don't think, if I had to put money on it, 100%, he kept that place in check because they realized we were hard,
right?
But at the company commander level, I got to see us go from Donahue to his replacement. And I'm not going to say his name because I'm sure he's still in the Army and I don't want to cause any type of no issues there. But this is what he said to us when he took over the company. And I'll never forget it. And I think I was a tab spec 4 at the time. I don't remember. But he shows up and it was change of command ceremony, right? Dude, change of command. This is your introduction to the company.
Strong move.
Right? Like, dude, first impression.
Right.
What's this guy going to come at us with?
Right.
And he walks up in front of the company and he goes, listen, I'm not going to come up here and give you guys some speech or try and motivate you. You're Rangers. You're special operations. Your motivation and your drive to be here needs to come from within. It's not up to me to create that. And I remember everybody like looking left and looking right. And then he goes, I feel bad saying this. He goes, all right, listen, I want everyone to take a deep breath. Deeper, deeper. Now let it out.
Oh, come on.
Bro, not a peep.
Right. Everyone just holds their breath.
This isn't basic training.
You're like, this didn't go well.
Well, first of all, if you're E4 and above, you're thinking, what is this jackass doing?
Yeah. Like,
if you're E3 or below, you wouldn't dare make a peep.
Right. There's no way.
Because you're like, dude, if I'm the guy that goes,
There's going to be 5 team leaders looking at you, just ripping you to pieces.
And so I was like, okay, this guy doesn't want to motivate us, but then he wanted to do some nerdy little basic training.
Some breathing exercises.
Drive. And he ended up being the worst fucking company commander ever. So now fast forward, he did his stint. So I went through 3 company commanders, Donahue, him, and then Captain Norrell took over for him. And our first introduction to Captain Norrell is we did a rotary wing exercise down at Fort Bliss, Texas. All of 2nd Battalion went down there, and they built this huge mount site for us to hit. And it was a company size element, and it was hit by ACO, BCO, CCO in that order. But there was it was separate, complete separate operations.
Were you ACO?
I was ACO.
You were, okay.
And so the new company commander gets up there and he's like, listen up, Rangers. They built an objective for Alpha Company, Bravo Company, and Charlie Company. But the truth is, those other 2 companies are getting 0 fucking training value tonight because we're burning that place to the fucking ground, dude. And everybody's just like,
right.
And dude, we did, dude.
Right.
Like when we left that objective, the buildings were literally on fire, dude.
Oh my God. 0 training value. Dude, that's the thing.
Getting dudes fired up,
right?
Letting dudes know, like, hey, I'm here. I'm in your corner. Let's get crazy. Let's get after it, dude. All of that stuff is real, man.
Right.
You know,
that's the funny thing about, young Rangers. I always tell this story, like people ask the difference between Rangers or something else. I'm like, I don't look, man, I don't claim I was summer help, like I don't claim to know anything. I was standing on the shoulders of giants for my entire career. But I remember watching one training operation where like a young Ranger comes up to a car to move it off an airfield. Right. And smashes the windshield out, and the observer controller, the guy like grading, he was like, hey Ranger, check the door. He opens it. He's like, yeah, Roger, Sergeant.
yeah. I already knew it was open.
I just smashed the windshield. I was like, this is a good place.
Man, we had some crazy training ops. Like, we did an airfield seizure down in Roswell, New Mexico. Oof. And, perfect location to add to conspiracy theories. Right. And we were, setting in like concertina wire blockades on roads and checkpoints and stuff. And dude, however they coordinated this, they didn't coordinate it with all of the civilian population there.
Right.
Because we were like doing ambushes, and obviously these are blank. Your guns have blank firing adapters on it, and there's no real ammo or any real ordnance. But it sounds like it.
Yeah, it's not fun to drive through.
When you got a 50 cal on top of an RSOV.
Yeah.
Does the regiment still do RSOVs?
I don't know. You just aged yourself, man. I don't know what that is. You have like M14s and muskets too.
Ranger Special Operation Vehicle. It was we had Land Rovers.
Okay.
So we had Land Rovers before the war kicked off because we were cool and we were in the regiment. But they were all like open, like just thin skin. The turret gunner was fully exposed. And then once we started deploying, the biggest threat is IEDs.
Right.
So we moved to Humvees like the rest of the military.
Right. Did you guys scour your hatchets too and like keep your black powder dry?
Yeah,
exactly. Right. Right. Keep your powder horn out of the mud.
Yeah. But dude, we opened up on some civilian vehicles that we thought were role players, and they weren't, dude.
Right.
And like the car went off the road and shit, and everyone was freaking the fuck out, dude. And it's like, dude, military training gets crazy sometimes. Or we've had on that same deployment, one of the Blackhawks, and I don't even know why, but my buddies were on the Blackhawk. They're like, dude, we touched down in this guy's backyard for a few minutes, and then the lights came on and the curtains of the slider opened and the bird took off all of a sudden.
False insertion.
And
dude.
I was like, dude, that you guys just contributed to the black helicopters.
Right, exactly. UFO, exactly right. Someone's on Twitter right now talking about that.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, that shit's training's crazy sometimes, man. But it's fun, dude. Yeah.
It's like I said, man, it's been a really cool experience. Like just standing on the shoulders of giants, and just like I've been incredibly fortunate to witness some of the things. Like I wouldn't be where I am and without the people that invested in me.
For sure.
And it's the same for the team leaders.
I was going to say that goes for every successful soldier in the military.
Absolutely.
So when you first got your commission and you became a PO, what was your first duty station?
I was in Hawaii.
Was that 25th ID?
Yeah, 25th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how was that?
It was cool, man. Again, like I cannot tell you how fortunate I am. Like the leaders that I had were incredible. Like to this day, like one is behind the fence at Bragg, and one is he went to Harvard and studied he made his own degree because he was so smart. And You know, like these are the people that I worked for. But I remember showing up and just getting humbled immediately. And like, I remember like walking along the hallways, like touching the wall, like being afraid to like take my hand off the wall to get eaten alive by one of these angry captains, you know, or like these like E7s with Ranger tabs who are clearly RIs, or like, you know, dudes with scrolls or something. So it was an intimidating experience. It was an exciting experience. And then when I got a platoon, it was like, hey, I'm not ready for this. Like kind of thing. Like, oh wait, I guess this is like how it works. Like you never feel comfortable going into a new job.
So when you show up at 25th ID, is there a period of time where you're like doing administrative stuff, or do you get a platoon almost immediately?
So I showed up and I ran the battalion store. I was pretty good at it. I was slaying t-shirts and stickers and like made Nalgene's.
What was that? S5.
S5.
Yeah, that's right.
S5. So I ran the store, but it was really like my buddy reported before me, and like hours before me, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna make you the S4. He's like, what? I'm a brand new second lieutenant. Like, I don't know how to do that. And then I showed up and they're like, hey, do you know how to sell Nalgene's? I'm like, I'll figure it out. You know, like,
you're like, I'm your man.
Yeah, I'm your guy. I'm like, stickers. I love stickers. So I did that for probably 3 weeks, man. You know, I showed up with the Ranger tab.
They're just plugging you in somewhere until you take your platoon.
Exactly right.
Got it.
Yeah. So showed up with the Ranger tab. A platoon opened up in the company I wanted to go for. I worked for an amazing commander. Had a platoon that needed work, and like you said, man, like that platoon leader or that company commander, you don't understand how much effect you have on the culture and the climate of that organization. Yeah, and it's really cool to see it like change over time, right? Like we were called the Misfit platoon because like it was the platoon of misfits, man. And like I can think of like 6 dudes in the platoon that got misfit tattoos by the time we ended. Just like,
shit,
dude. Yeah. Like I hung misfit stuff all over the walls. I got t-shirts made and like did PT competitions and like created this like chip on our shoulder attitude. Like yeah, we're the misfits. Like,
I always say to people, like the military is like a gang.
100%.
You know what I mean? You have your symbols and you have your like initiations and all that stuff, you know, but it's a gang that's recognized as a good thing, but it fills a need in young men that
absolutely
like,
right.
I always talk about like the guys that are down in Compton and South Central, like they have that need too, but what's presented to them is very different than what was available to us. You know?
Absolutely right, man. And this author, Carl Marlantes, we had him on our podcast, Leadership Experience. What's up? Check it out. He talked about the military being a calling, right? Like the difference between a calling and a career. And he was like, the difference between the military as a calling is that the military kills people.
Yeah.
Right. Like if it's a career and you kill people, you're an assassin.
Like,
and I was like, whoa, like that's an interesting way to think about it. And he goes, you know, a calling, it involves purpose. It involves belonging. It involves brotherhood. And like these things that you can't necessarily like track on an Excel spreadsheet, but they're there.
Yeah.
Like what platoon were you in ACO?
3rd Platoon, Earth Pigs.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And guess what they're called to this day? You know, like there is that culture that exists. And it's funny as a company commander, because as a platoon leader, I was just like misfits versus the world.
Yeah.
You know, and as a company commander, I'm like, hey guys, we got to work together. Like, I love the platoon intensity, but like, let's bring it together. And like, it's Seco versus the world now. You can see I'm like, oh, I hate 2nd Platoon or something, you know?
Do you want to hear something funny about the Earth Pigs? Is in our company or in our platoon AO, we had a big stuffed wild boar, right? With these giant tusks and looking like this tough animal. If you Google Earth Pig, it's not a wild boar.
Is it not that?
It's a fucking aardvark, dude. I was like, oh man, we've been lied to all this time. We're the fucking 3rd Platoon aardvarks.
Or the aardvarks, yeah. That's not very intimidating, dude. It doesn't strike fear into the enemy.
So when you took that platoon over, like, do you remember what it was like walking in literally day one and addressing 30 men that, hey, I'm your new PL?
Yeah. So I can give you 2 stories on that. So walking in as a PL, man, I can give you a few. Actually.
Yeah, let's hear it, dude.
I've done it a few times.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'll do PL and I'll talk about my time in the 75th and then my time as a company commander. So time as a PL, when I walked in, I remember like seeing the PL leaving, and it was like Obama before he took office and Obama after he took office.
Oh, just wore his ass out.
Wore out, dude. Gray hair. He's just like, oh man,
the misfits fucking have their way with him,
right?
dude.
Yeah, he's like, you're in for a wild ride, and I was like, oh man, you know. And the NCOs just like challenge you at first, hard. They're like, hey, sweet haircut, sir. Like something like that. I'm like, yeah, thank you, Sergeant. You know, like, and I met my platoon sergeant, but I've always been this way, like pretty intense, love PT, just love getting after it. And the platoon sergeant and I saw eye to eye. He ended up getting relieved. I went through like 3 platoon sergeants, man. Like,
in how long of a period? Like 2 years or something?
I did 12 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like, it was probably me, if I'm honest. I don't know. But I remember just like never being sized up as much as that time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like people just being like, what's this dude about?
Yeah.
Right. Like, what's he going to do? Because like as a PL, it's your first time as an officer where you can like truly affect someone's life positively or negatively.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
What do you want to do? Like the commander gives a lot of guidance, but like that platoon leader has enough freedom and autonomy to fuck stuff up like pretty badly. Right. And I remember dudes just like sizing me up and me being like, I feel like I'm in prison right now and like I should like fight somebody or like, so, you know,
dude, it might have got you some instant street cred.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, hey, get the small, like my RTO, just like headbutt him or something. You know?
The truth is though, being sized up when you show up as an officer, that's just how it goes.
100%.
That's the natural, like the whole platoon is all eyes on you. What's this guy bring to this table?
And what they're asking and like what they're looking at is like, is this guy going to make my life worse or does he care about me?
Yeah. 100%, dude.
That's it.
Yeah. And that's a thing that in leadership, at least pre 9/11, I think was kind of lost, is caring about your people. It's everything. Yeah. Like do you know your specialist so-and-so's wife's name?
Dude, you couldn't have said it better.
You know,
yep.
Oh, he has 2 young daughters. And if you just show those people, like, okay, yeah, we're fucking Rangers or we're whatever. Our job's to go blow buildings up and kill people. But if you know that guy on a personal level, outside of Rangering a little bit, I think that's leadership 101, man. Dude. Because once you show that person that you care about them as a person, nothing to do with your rank versus their rank.
Right.
Now you have a bond, and now that person is willing to follow you. Yep. You know,
I'll give you a side story for that, man. So when I became a company commander, you have 160 dudes, and like, dude, it's impossible to know all of them at first. Mm-hmm. So I had my platoon leaders make like baseball cards for these guys.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like their picture, where they're from, wife's name, dates, like anniversary, birthdays, or whatever. And I remember the dude, my platoon leaders complained so much, and I was like, all right, just do it. Like I'm like, you'll see. Like you have to trust me on this one. I remember the first time that I used the baseball card, I saw one of my mortarman corporals, or he was a specialist at the time. And I was like, hey man, isn't it your kid's birthday today? Cause you know, it just snapped in my head. And I was like, isn't it your kid's birthday? He's like, yeah, sir, it is. And I was like, what are you doing here? He's like, well, I got to go to the motor pool. And I was like, you're cut. Like,
oh wow.
Yeah. I was like, go like take your kid out and get ice cream or something. Dude, like,
bro, that's almost giving me goosebumps, dude. Cause it's a little gesture. Yeah. And that dude would literally walk through fire for you now, dude, just over something like that.
He came to my office, 18 months later, and he just brought, like, it's giving me goosebumps actually. Like he came to my office and brought me a Christmas card of his family. He's like, hey sir, just want to let you know I love you. And like gave me a Christmas card with his family on it. And
dang.
Like, you know, and like that's one of those things like you can't describe until it happens. And it was just because like I invested in him, but like someone showed that like, go be with your family. The uniform's coming off, man.
Yeah.
Like your family needs to be there.
But it also shows that you took the time to invest just enough energy to know a little bit about him.
And that's exactly right.
You know?
Like it's like
that gave him just a little bit of value, a little bit of importance. Right. You know?
As a company commander, if I come up, I'm like, hey, Private Anderson, so you're into jiu-jitsu, huh? And like you'd be like, oh yes, sir. Like it's a human thing, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't need to know everything, but like enough to start a conversation.
Yeah.
And then they'll start to unload, you know?
That's pretty cool, man.
It was cool. And it's something that I do to this day. But like going back to it, like caring for people, like if your kid has a birthday, go home.
Yeah.
Like, if you're getting a divorce, let's walk through it together. Let's walk through your finances together.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Well, and that's another aspect that people are probably a little out of touch with, is that military leadership versus civilian leadership.
Oh man.
The difference is your guidance and your leadership isn't just 9 to 5.
Dude.
Like if you're getting divorced, Amazon is not going to hold your hand through that.
Right.
But a good team leader or a good PL
exactly right.
is going to be there and walk through that with you, because your soldier, you don't have a soldier from 9 to 5.
Right.
You have him, period.
That's it.
And so his mental health and his ability to like put all the stresses of life on the side when it's time to deploy or when it's time to train.
Yep.
If that stuff's not managed, it's going to be a big problem.
100%. And you know, something you mentioned last time, you talked about like you can talk to your team to this day. Like you can text them to this day.
Yeah, I love it, man.
That's what we're getting after, right? The Army has some initiatives, like there's like This Is My Squad, and they're great initiatives, but like you're living it. You are truly living it. Like, can you text your guys? Or like, I had this platoon leader who was a dude, a rock star, man. He was so good. All my platoon leaders were great. I was super fortunate. But I had this dude, he was older. He played in the NBA. I was trying to get him up here for a podcast actually. But he would like text me on the weekends. He'd be like, "Hey, I took my platoon hiking Rainier this weekend, sir. Just want to show you a picture." He's like, "Yeah, I was just bored. And you know, I know they were in the barracks." And I was like, you get it.
Yeah.
He gets it.
That's cool.
It's super cool.
No, I was actually cleaning my garage out like 3 days ago, and I found a picture of my rifleman in Afghanistan, and his name's James Dupay. And he's the one guy that I don't have on my phone, right? We're connected on Facebook or whatever. Yeah. So I text my, who was my saw gunner, his name was Zdunik. I said, "Hey, I just found this picture of Dupay. He's not on my phone anymore for whatever reason. Forward this to him." And he goes like 20 seconds later, he's like, "All right, done." You know,
awesome. That's awesome.
Like 17 years removed from the regiment, and we still get to have that connection. So it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, you never know like where they're at in life too, or like you never know the impact that little message will have. Like even on this last Christmas, man, like I set time aside to text these guys, like the guys that I cared about. You know, I want to say I care about every single one of them, but there's some guys I keep in touch with. Just like, "Hey man, hope all is well. Let me know if you need anything. Thinking about you. Merry Christmas." And it makes a huge difference, man.
It's huge. So I'm going to show you this picture live on the air. And it's good.
Oh man.
It's good that this picture didn't get out while I was an E5 team leader, because I would have been RFS, right? But we're on patrol in Afghanistan. And Dupay's like, "Hey, I'm going to grab this Afghani's axe from him, and I'm going to let him hold my rifle just for the picture." Dude, look at that. It's so...
As a company commander, you have no idea how nervous that makes me.
Yeah, I know, right?
That'd be like me walking into that situation and seeing it and just being like, "Turn around."
What the fuck is going on?
I don't need to see this.
But you know why I know I made the right decision? Because 17 years later, I'm sitting here laughing about it.
Exactly, man. Exactly. It's exactly right. Like that's.
Oh man.
I say that jokingly as a company commander or whatever, but that's the stuff that's important. Like maybe not giving Afghans your guns necessarily, but you know. I think there's other ways, but that's those little things, man, that you just like, you don't like, maybe you get in the civilian world. I don't know. I can't talk on it, but
we can't talk on it necessarily, but it's different regardless,
for sure.
You know? So the other thing, when you show up as a new PL, the one thing that was like huge, at least in the regiment, day one, dude, what's your PT like?
Oh, I knew it.
What's your PT like, dude? And you're an ultra marathon runner, right? So you're a fucking monster when it comes to that. In the regiment, if you can't run like the wind as a PL, good luck. I mean, you want to be able to outrun every one of your NCOs.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's
hard,
bro.
Man.
I can't even imagine that because I mean, I was always in shape, but I was never one of the strongest runners in the platoon by any fucking shot, dude. My buddy Toby Folk, who was in my squad with me, was running like, I think like sub 11s or something, dude. Yep. And so every platoon has a handful of guys running sub 11s.
Yep.
So then that means that's the level you're trying to get to. If I was running 13 flat, high 12s, like, okay, I'm good.
Right.
You know,
I'm safe. Right.
Yeah. Not for you though,
man. So it's an interesting point because like you want to find that balance of like not being the asshole who shows up and it's like, "All right, man, let's go on a 10-mile run just to show you how fast I am." But like,
well, I mean, it's going to get discovered.
Dude. And I'm telling you, again, it's like prison. Like they're going to figure it out really quick. They're like, hey, so you want to come deadlift with us? And you're like,
Yeah.
God damn it. I know where this is going. You know, like I know where this is going. And the funny thing is like, dude, you give an inch, they will never forget it.
Yeah.
They'll always be like, hey, remember the time I beat the PL? And they'll be like, oh,
yeah.
What's up, sir? You still slow today or what? Like, you still fucking weak?
I beat my PL at jiu-jitsu one time.
Oh my God. You probably never, that was all you said to him.
But it was hell.
Yeah.
And he was a monster, dude.
Yeah.
And I didn't know jiu-jitsu. I mean, you know how it is in the regiment. Like you train and you're shown jiu-jitsu, but it's not like if you train jiu-jitsu on the side in an academy, you'd smash anybody.
Sure.
So it was just Ranger Regiment level jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But everybody's tough and strong and has a good gas tank.
Yeah.
And I remember in the middle,
don't quit.
I remember in the middle, it's like, oh, this guy's trying to tear my head off, dude. This isn't just like, we're not just grappling. He's not going to lose to one of his spec 4s or whatever I was at the time,
right?
You know? And he was a great PL, man. I mean, that didn't change anything, but I remember that competition was always there. And I think I might've told the story on when I was down at Fort Lewis, but we had a PL show up and we didn't know at the time that he was prior enlisted and that he had jumped into Panama.
Wow.
Right? Because he was in Ranger PTs. Right. And this was day one. And so, and it was Ranger, I think we call it field day. Do they still have that?
Yeah. I mean, at work days.
Yeah. So it's like, there's like a football game,
basketball game,
and a couple foot races, and
tactical race.
Yeah, it's all just it's a bunch of different events. Everybody just has fun. People's families are over and stuff. And so that was the day that he took over the platoon, and it wasn't my platoon. It was he took over one of the other platoons in the company. But I still remember the NCOs heckling him, like you were saying, you know. And they had a 5K and a 10K. Those were the two races of the day, and like, hey, sir, why don't you do the 5K?
Right.
And everybody's expected to do one event.
Right.
Okay. You're going to do a foot race or you're going to play this game.
I already know where this is going.
Yeah.
I already know where this is going.
And so, yeah, all right, I'll do the 5K with you guys.
Right. He finishes and
comes in first.
Yep.
He beats everybody. Well, 10K is next.
Exactly right.
And you know damn well somebody is what they're going to say. Hey, sir, if you won the 5K, why don't you do the 10K with us too?
If you're so fast.
Yeah. Beat everybody at that too.
Have to, man.
So day one,
yeah,
he beat everyone in the 5K group, everyone in the 10K group.
Yep.
So everyone's like, whoa, right? And then when we changed into our uniform, he has a fucking mustard stain.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right,
oh, well, yeah, of course.
Well, of course he is. Yeah,
he jumped into Panama.
He's not a West Pointer. Right, exactly.
But still, like, I mean, I think about if I was showing up as a new PL, there was dudes in our platoon like Sergeant Elrod who would have ran me into the dirt and taken my soul, right? Like we had guys like that, but he beat him, you know?
Yep.
And so it's a crazy thing, but it's, and the funny thing is it doesn't even say much about your leadership.
No.
Like
if you about your preparation though, like how serious do you take it?
For sure.
Right? Like, like, you know, you're going to get tested day one.
Yeah.
Like, how are you preparing for that? Right. And like, it's not a leadership thing. And like I said, it needs to be a balance.
It's more than a leadership thing. It's just like a man-to-man thing.
First impressions, man.
You know,
like, do I trust this guy to go hard?
Uh-huh.
You know, and that's funny you mentioned the jiu-jitsu thing. So when I was a platoon leader, I say when, because I had a philosophy that every like combat PT event should end in combatives or like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
like
nice,
fighting.
dude. Yeah,
it was great until I did it with the platoon the first time and like we did call outs. Worst idea of my life because all 30 dudes were like, PL, let's roll. And I was like, hey man, I just did like the 29 guys before me. They're getting balled up. And like, you can just tell like the guys are just waiting for me to get weak and break me down. I think that was the last time we did like combatives PT.
So did you deploy at all with the 25th ID platoon?
We did an Asia rotation. So it's all regionally aligned. We did Australia, Indonesia, and Malaysia.
Okay. So fun deployments.
Dude, they're pretty tough, man. They were tough, but like looking back on them, like, you know, it wasn't like sightseeing or anything. Like we did their JRTC is like their training, CTC. What does the CTC stand for? Collective Training Centers.
Okay.
It's like where you go to do your like validation exercise. So dude, it was tough. Like we did the Australian CTC. And like Australia gets cold. I didn't know that. It gets super cold. Like I remember like my RTO just like wrapping me up and like come here, sir. Like, keeping me warm, you know.
It's funny, dude. I always tell people I've spent nights closer with men
Oh yeah.
than I ever have with my wife.
Dude, I've shared sleeping bags with dudes.
Yeah.
You know, like at Fort Benning, actually.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, dude, Fort Benning is one of the coldest places on planet Earth. It gets in your bones.
I don't understand how it's so cold. It's like someone controls like the CG of Fort Benning controls it. And I was like, I'm going to destroy Ranger tonight.
Yeah. And dude, you know, it's called BMNT, Before Morning Nautical Twilight.
Dude.
And you're sitting in your patrol base,
dude,
and the skyline just starts to lighten up a little bit.
And the wetness just comes right down on
and you know the sun's coming, and then the temperature just drops.
Dude, like 10 degrees.
And it sucks all the heat out of your body.
Yep.
And I remember, dude, when the sun would crest the horizon, it would be like a drug.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, baby. Yeah, right.
You're back.
Right.
Thank you.
And you're not tired anymore. You're solar powered. Yeah. Dude.
It's nuts,
oh,
dude.
Man. I like always wondered like what phenomenon that is. Again, I'm not a very smart individual. So I was just like, I just think of like the 0530 time. And I'm like, whew, it's going to get cold, boys.
Yeah.
It's going to get cold.
But we're supposed to be up at that time because that's when the French and Indians attack.
Man. You got to be careful, man. Those French.
I actually what's it called? War on the Run. I just bought that book yesterday, and it's on Robert Rogers.
Nice. Okay.
And it's because I posted his standing orders the other day on Instagram. And a lot of people are digging that. You know, it's kind of, if you haven't seen those before,
awesome.
It's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But of course, it's Instagram, so some people have to hate on it.
Right.
Yeah, he was a fucking loyalist. Like, why are you sharing his stuff? And it's like, dude, it was fucking 240 years ago.
Right.
He had interesting tactics.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I'm saying. Relax.
Like, his hatchet wasn't locally sourced.
Yeah.
What, dude?
And so,
relax.
But one guy commented, and he's like, hey, if you want to know every last detail of Major Robert Rogers, a great book is this. And so
that's awesome.
As you can see, my book pile is growing. I have a lot of catching up to do, but
I got some good ones over there.
It should be interesting. Yeah, one of the ones over there is the one you recommended.
Coddling of the American Mind.
Yeah, Coddling of the American Mind.
Book, man.
Haven't started that yet.
We can go to that in a second. Like that's oh man.
Well, where I want to go next is you finished up your time as a PL. In 25th ID.
Yep.
And then did you know you wanted to put in for the regiment out of there, or did you do more PL time?
So I wanted to go SF.
Okay.
Again, man, like I didn't know the difference of anything. I knew the Navy SEAL thing on Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
I knew the
surviving the cut.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And there's a surviving the cut, like Ranger school. And I was like, I want to be a Ranger. And I got my tab. And my first 3 company commanders were all regiment dudes. They were all regiment dudes.
Oh, okay.
The Battalion XO was a regiment dude.
Is that kind of normal? Army wide?
Yeah, it's called the Abrams Charter. So,
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so as an officer, you in the regiment, you bounce in and out, and the idea is to take what you've learned in the regiment. Which, like, in my board, one of the sergeants major asked me, he's like, "How are you going to give more than what you're going to get in this organization?" It was a trick question. Like, you're not going to, right? Like, dude, you're just going to take from that organization. So, like, you have a duty to go forward and pay what you've learned to the general purpose force and to share those lessons. So some units will have more scrolls than others, and it's just a location thing, or it's really a leadership thing. Like with Colonel Chung right now, like there's a lot of dudes that came from the regiment. So like I didn't know, man. And my first commanders kind of shaped me towards that. Like I wanted to be SF. I wanted to be a Green Beret. I don't remember what happened. I applied. I had like a SFAS date, and then I had an opportunity to assess to go to the regiment. And I honestly don't remember like the main decision in my head, but I was like, I had a blast as a platoon leader.
Yeah,
like, I want to go continue to do stuff like this. And
SF's not going anywhere.
Yeah, they're doing like the JSET thing.
What's that?
It's like they do like the Columbia training mission.
Oh yeah.
And I'm super ignorant on SF. Like I have a lot of buddies over there. Great organization, but it's vastly different than what people think it is. Is the problem? Like people think it's like, I say people. I thought as a lieutenant that was like the NFL of kicking indoors and dropping hellfires and like killing bad dudes.
Yeah.
But it's a different mission.
For sure.
And you need to understand that mission, like the foreign internal defense, unconventional warfare mission. There's a lot of training involved in it. And I don't know that I would have been happy there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I've loved my route so far. But going back to your question, you know, I applied and I assessed and went and served at Fort Benning in the 75th.
So that was your second platoon then?
So I wasn't, I was an OIC of like the dogs, breachers, and the marksmanship program. So like I had a I had a platoon size element, but managed these.
I see. Yeah,
like special programs.
So you're part of HHC.
Yeah, I was an HHC guy. Yep. So I had like a platoon size element, but it was really unique, man, because I had, you know, like master sergeants, sergeants first class. Man, I think I had all NCOs and maybe one junior enlisted guy.
Okay.
And it was really cool because like going in there with a beginner's mind, like just like teach me everything. Like, dude, those guys invested in me, man. Like I can't tell you like how fortunate I was to have those guys invest in me, like the opportunities that I had. And there was like a symbiotic relationship where I would plan training for them and like plan these awesome trips. And they'd be like, "Hey, sir, you want to come along? Let's go party." You know, let's go blow some. Like I went to, you know, the master breacher course, the first officer to do that. It was
that's awesome,
dude. It was so cool, man. And it was just because of those NCOs that invested in me, man.
So when you put in for the regiment, I mean, back when I was in, it was rip and rope. Yeah, it was either indoc for privates like me, or it was orientation for officers or NCOs that were already tabbed.
Exactly right. Yeah.
If you were untabbed as I can't remember. I think specialists that were untabbed
go to RIP,
had to still go through indoc.
Yeah.
And then NCOs that were tabbed would go through orientation.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's very different now. Now you have RASP for the enlisted side, and then
RASP 1 or RASP 2.
Okay. So what's RASP 2 like? Because I've talked to some people who've been through RASP 1, but I know nothing about RASP 2.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to, I can't give you too much about it.
Yeah, of course.
It's more professional. It's very physical. And really they're assessing like who you are as a leader. I don't want to claim to know what they're assessing, but my guess is that they're assessing like who you are as a leader and where you'll fit into the organization. Because you know, with RIP, my observation is like you take these guys through and you can build them, right? Like as a private, you can build a team leader. And if you don't, you RFS them or you send them somewhere else. It's not a good fit, right?
Yeah, that's I mean, you literally have 2 years to decide if this guy should be an NCO.
Exactly right.
You know?
Exactly right. So when you go in to this other assessment, I would imagine they're like, well, this dude's an NCO. He's a staff sergeant, or this dude's a senior lieutenant about to be a captain, or this dude's a senior captain about to be a major, or like this dude's about to be a first sergeant. So they're assessing different things.
That's right. Every time you cycle back to the regiment,
every time you go out,
through it again,
you go back in. Yeah. So
okay.
I've never seen behind the curtain, but having gone through the course, I would assume they're assessing different things, and it's a really cool experience because that's your first indoctrination into the unit, and like you're paired with E8s, man. Like you're paired with master sergeants about to take a company. Yeah. So, dude, it was such a cool experience to be with these guys. Again, 15 deployments, and to mentor you through this course. It was really cool. Really cool experience.
That's badass.
Yeah, it was fun, man. It sucked. Like physically, it's a difficult course and it tests you, but
I'm sure. Because, I mean, it goes back to what we were saying. Any regimental leadership position.
Yep.
If you show up weak,
dude, you get eaten alive.
Get eaten alive.
Get eaten alive.
So the regiment has created a solution to that problem before it even becomes one.
Yeah, and it goes to the preparation thing. Like, how serious are you taking this?
Yeah.
You know, like, are you who you say you are? And it's cool to see, like, just like with any training program or whatever, like to see the fruit of your labor going into it and going into that assessment and then like doing the Ranger standards and being like, all right, let's go do this.
So, I mean, anything you're not comfortable talking about, just tell me to fuck off. It won't hurt my feelings. But once you
double leg you through the wall.
Once you were then assigned to the regiment, like, how was that different from, I mean, I know you weren't part of a traditional platoon. You're more of a headquarters element. Yeah. But still, like you said, you had guys under you that you were kind of in charge of overseeing training and different things.
For sure.
Like, how was that experience?
So I was initially with a company. I did a rotation with a company, so I got to do that. And then I had the opportunity to do the special programs thing.
Okay.
So the experience was different, but it was just, again, man, like I always go back to this, like the people that invested in me, and it could have gone one of two ways. Like I could have gone in there and like asked, how can I help? Like, what can I do? And that's kind of the approach that I did for everyone, right? Like for my NCOs and then for my commander, like how can I buy my commander some maneuver space? Like, how can I get these NCOs what they want and then take off their plate what they need, right? Or I could have been in there and be like, all right, man, like let's get in here and talk about culture. We're going to do an RPFT tomorrow. We're going to do an RPAT. Dude, they would have fucking ran me out of the building.
Yeah.
You know?
And for people listening, like exactly like we just discussed, you showing up as a new PL, all eyes are on you, right? Yeah. And everybody's going to try and call you out. And even though you weren't a new PL anymore, you're new to the regiment. So guess what? You're a new PL.
Yeah. I did a USASOC rotation before that. So I had a USASOC patch. So they're like, you don't know what you're doing here. You know what I mean? They're like, there's no scroll here. Like I had my beret and like thought I looked cool and everything. They're like, I don't care about you. I had this, and I talked to all my NCOs to this day. Like, dude, I could not have had better dudes.
But the other side of it, I mean, you keep saying that like, you know, you were on the shoulders of giants, but the reality of that statement is those guys invested in you because you brought something to the table or you brought the right energy to them. They like you showed up. If they got a bad vibe off you or they knew like for whatever reason, they didn't think that you were the right person to be the PL for their platoon, you would have got the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Since they're there building you up and being in your corner and like, that says a lot about how you approach the situation just as much as them helping you, you know?
I think so, man. And it's an interesting point because you have guys who are like, I'll do anything to be there. I'll mop the floors. Like I would offer like, you're more valuable than that. Like, you have something better to offer than mopping the floors. And that's when I met those guys. Like I didn't have that attitude of like, hey, I'll do whatever you need. I would just be like, hey, what's wrong with this right now? And you got to kind of approach it with like an improver mentality. Dude, I fucked up a ton.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, so much. Like every day my NCOs were like, whenever they said sir, instead of like call me Ando, like my last name, they were like, hey sir. I'd be like, oh boy, here we go, you know?
Yeah. That's funny you say the mopping the floor things because I don't know if I told you, I went through the warrant officer course.
That's what you said. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to go into aviation after being in the regiment because there was a time where I wanted to stay in the Army, but I didn't want to be a ground pounder for 20 years. Yeah. You know,
for sure.
Like my buddy Bohannon.
Yeah. He's a monster. He's a legend. I thought he was going to be in my board, by the way. And everyone's like, hey, if Bohannon's in the board, everyone's going to fail. Sort of guy.
Bro, we were privates together. We were tab spec 4s together.
Dude's a legend.
And, but he just kept going and going and going and rangering. And it's just like, no, dude, if I'm going to stay in, I'm going to take a turn and go to aviation, you know?
Dude, yeah. Get that crew rest, baby.
Yeah. And so I went through the warrant officer course down at Fort Rucker. And WOCS is another leadership course, which is locked down, which that's always a strange concept to me. So it's weird. Like, you're teaching me to be a military leader, but you don't trust me to show up to work at 06.
Right.
And dude, they even said that to us. They're like, I forget what they called us in candidate school, but they're like, because someone asked that, like during a Q&A when you're leaving, like, what would you change about the course?
Right.
And they're like, well, what is beneficial about having this be a lockdown course? Because from the hours of 1800 to 06, there's nothing going on. We're just stuck in the barracks. And they're like, if we gave you guys freedom, half the people would graduate this course.
It's absolutely. I was just about to say, man, it doesn't matter what rank you are. You get all the same rank together. They're all privates.
Yeah, exactly. And so I remember laughing because I was like, dude, they're teaching us to be warrant officers, to have us fly $1 million aircrafts.
Right.
And they don't think that, but they're more worried about us going out and getting drunk and doing stupid shit.
I mean, would you have gotten drunk and done stupid shit?
That's what I'm saying, dude. Right. It's funny, right? But so since we were locked down and living in barracks again, you had your common areas.
Yeah.
And it would rotate. You'd be like, whatever, this day you're raking the leaves, this day you're scrubbing the toilets. And it was like a Saturday night. And the full bird colonel was in the bathrooms scrubbing the toilets with us. And we're like, wow, a full bird colonel. And that was, I remember he talked to the group of people that were like, that was their cleaning duties for that day or that night or whatever. And he's like, hey, it's an important lesson. That's why I want you guys to see this firsthand. Like, you're never above doing the work at the very, 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 very bottom. Like, never forget this. I'm not above scrubbing toilets. These are my barracks and these are your barracks, right? And obviously he wasn't there to scrub toilets. He was there to make a point. Right. But it stuck with me. You know,
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool, man.
And he wrote in his blog about how he meandered with the peasants. And
I don't know. This was probably pre-blogs. This is 2008.
He's on his podcast right now saying the same story in a parallel universe. He's like, I'm okay with scrubbing some toilets.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, that course, to this day, I look back on it and I can't wrap my head around what they are trying to accomplish with what they're doing. You have to have, like, first platoon is blue hats, blue shoelaces, and second platoon is red hats, red shoelaces. You have to have new platoon songs every week.
That's awesome. I want to be the song guy.
Dude. Of course, there's always one guy that's like, I used to sing R&B for you know what I mean?
Right.
And they just take it super seriously and like trying to get everybody to like harmonize and shit. It's like, dude, I'm a fucking Ranger and I want to fly Blackhawks. I don't give a fuck about platoon song. But
you're like, let me check those lyrics when you're done now.
And you'd have to sing the platoon song to be granted access into the chow hall.
I love it.
For every fucking meal, dude.
I think every formation in the Army should be like
that. But I remember thinking, dude, because I mean, I came from the regiment and now I'm wearing a matching hat, matching shoelaces, having to sing songs to eat chow.
That's brutal.
Fucking Army, dude.
I mean, yeah. I always we always ask, like, what's the purpose of things? Like, everyone, all leaders, like, what's the purpose? You got to ask the purpose. Like, start with why. Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? I want someone to be like,
yeah, maybe I didn't understand the why. Maybe that was like a team building exercise, you know?
I don't think so.
But dude, it was so interesting. In the warrant officer course, they would purposely cause drama within the platoon. And so they called a platoon formation, right? And the cadre came out and they're like, listen up, guys. There's a member of this platoon that came to my office and they told us that you guys have no cohesion, you can't get along, and like it was a female, I forget what we called them in warrant officer course, but cadre member.
Yeah.
And she went on like this rant basically about how fucked up we are.
Our cadre, are they warrants?
Yes.
They are? Okay.
Yes, they're warrants.
Okay.
And so then, I mean, she walks and she's like, you better fix it. You know, she walks inside and I remember everybody immediately at each other's throats. Right. Who went in there and said this and said that and who complained, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, everybody stop.
It's a game, dude.
Okay, stop. I said, I want you guys to know something. And dude, I was just some fucking E5 from the regiment. Not a lot of experience outside of that, right?
Right.
I said, but I'll bet every dollar I've ever made that the little speech she just gave about how fucked up we are and how people are coming into her office and making complaints against other candidates. I said, that's scripted.
It's written into the calendar.
That's written in.
Guaranteed.
I said, every single class, and because people were getting ready to go to blows over this.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
And I was like, this is part of the curriculum.
Right.
Okay. They're going to throw us a little bit of turmoil and then they're going to see how we interpret that and then how we work through it.
Right.
I said, so let's just ask, like, did anybody in the platoon right now go in and voice any kind of displeasure with other candidates? And we're not going to be mad at you. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely.
Okay? This is how we really go through this problem. If there was one, nobody raised their hand, which I already knew it was scripted.
Right.
But let's just go through this, you know? And, dude, then we all sat and started talking and then it became like kind of funny because everyone's like, oh man, they kind of got us, you know? Right. And then everybody was cool. And it's like, but that was on the verge of going the other way.
For sure.
Because all it took was one dude. It was this big dude. It was like, I want to know who fucking went in there and said something. Like, and now it's immediately like tensions going up.
For sure.
You know?
It's funny how you see that in a group. Like it's almost like viral reactions, you know? It's like everyone just needs to calm down. Everyone just relax. And that's going back to the platoon leader piece. I always tell my platoon leaders that, like, they think you need to be some like rah screaming guy. Like, just calm down, man. Mm-hmm. Just be calm.
Well, dude, calm breeds calm.
That's absolutely right.
You know, right. You as the leader that people are looking to,
right,
for guidance they're not just looking for tactical guidance, like what door should I hit, sir?
Right.
They're looking for emotional guidance. If they look at you and you're like, oh my God, we're all going to die.
Right.
Like, dude,
that's absolutely right.
You're fucked, man.
That's absolutely right. There's this guy, Paul Bloom, he's a Harvard economist. He has a book called Against Empathy, and he talks about empathy. And someone's gonna be on YouTube and they're like, well, actually, you got it wrong. So like, give me a break.
That person can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, right. Like, give me a break. All right. But he talks about like empathy versus compassion, and empathy is the ability to like inherit someone's emotions. So if someone's sad, it's your ability to feel sad, right? If someone's panicked, it's your ability to feel their panic. Where he argues like there are some professions where like empathy is a bad thing. You want compassion. You want to be able to understand why these emotions are happening. And he argues like,
but not take them on yourself.
Yeah, sure. So like a doctor, for example, like a doctor giving a cancer diagnosis, like, do you want him to come in and be like, you have cancer, and the whole family breaks down and he breaks down?
Yeah.
Or do you want him to be a fucking steely-eyed killer? And it's like, you have cancer. Here's your treatment.
Yep.
And soldiers, same thing, right? Like, hey, we're getting mortared right now and we can't maneuver. Do you want to freak out like that saw gunner, or do you want to be a steely-eyed killer and take control of that situation and maneuver your platoon, maneuver your company? So I always thought of that, and like the viral reactions of people and the calm breeding calm. Like the second you start freaking out, you lose it, man.
Yeah.
And you're not getting it back.
Yep. No. And that's one thing that like in Ramadi in 04 that I learned about myself is that when everyone else is freaking out, it's actually easier to stay calm.
For sure.
Because there's something about their panic that I remember looking at and it just felt silly to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the guys on my team. And it was usually when we were on base and we started getting mortared. And I mean, in 04, the mortars were falling like rain.
Yeah.
It was all day, every day. Right. And so you're at chow and the chow hall is getting hit. You're getting peppered with like gravel and stuff. That's how they're right there. You know, I never physically got hit with shrapnel, but a lot of people did, you know?
Sure.
And I remember when the mortars would start falling, and it was just kind of, it was literally, you could see the line drawn down the MOS.
Absolutely.
The grunts, fuck it.
Right.
Whatever.
Exposure and experience.
You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, we had the Marine Corps band living on Blue Diamond. That's the base I was on.
Yeah.
And they were tasked with base security. So your fucking guard towers were manned by the tuba players.
Baby. Hell
you know?
Yeah,
right. And that's a real thing. Like those people, every Marine's a rifleman. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, right.
Well, all riflemen are not created equal.
Right.
Because we saw people like crying, diving under tables and stuff. And the tables are the chow hall tables that are an 1/8 inch thick plastic.
Right.
They're not going to do a damn thing.
Right.
And so, or people just running. And I was like, okay, well, the first mortar hit there and you're running away from it. So we always used to joke, like, if you're going to run anywhere, run right into the crater that the last mortar made.
Exactly right.
Because there's a fucking...
The adjustment is going to take you away from that.
Yep. You know, but in reality, you don't know where the next one's falling. Right. So you can panic and you can be scared.
Right.
And get fucking blown to bits still. Or you can be calm and collective and maybe get blown to bits still. It is outside of your control.
For sure.
You know?
How long did it take you to develop that? Because like your first time probably wasn't like your last time.
No. It's funny you say that because I have two sides to that. Initially, I built up the resilience very quickly because the team was already established only by 3 weeks, I think. I had got there, the team stood up Ramadi, and then I got up there 3 weeks later.
Wow.
But they were all, dude, it's just like you were saying, that guy's a combat patch. These guys have been in Ramadi for 3 weeks. And they'd already been in some gnarly ambushes, the car's full of bullet holes and stuff. And so I was like, oh, fuck, dude. I couldn't look weak in front of those men. And so right out of the gates, I didn't allow any type of fear to be projected outwards, right? And then it morphed from me controlling it to almost me enjoying it, which is weird, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Because when we would be getting attacked or the base would be getting attacked and seeing everybody else screaming and fleeing and doing like just being in hysteria, we would take that as an opportunity to be like, you know, when people like ring the bell in buds, you always hear guys say like, I'm taking their power from them. Yeah, that's what it felt like, you know?
That's awesome.
It's like everybody's scared and I've already accepted that I might die today. So now I'm not scared of anything anymore. And that was like a weird transition for me that I don't necessarily know if it was healthy, but it's a common thing for soldiers.
Necessary though.
Yeah, necessary because you have two choices: accept that the next one might get you, or be scared. And I was there for 2 years. You can't be in the state of being scared for 2 years,
right?
You know. But then fast forward to 2008, and I was in Erbil, and Erbil is basically like being in Lake Stevens, Washington.
Right.
You could literally go to the mall and
that's crazy.
Order food. You could go to the race car track and ride go-karts. Dude, it was literally...
That's insane.
It didn't even feel like a deployment.
That's insane.
But the Kurdish people were in our corners 100%.
Yeah.
And because obviously Saddam, being a Sunni, like he fucking, life as a Kurd in Iraq under Saddam was hell.
Yeah, not awesome.
So when we overthrew Saddam, the Kurds were like, fuck yeah, dude. And Kurdistan is basically a separate country. You know, they have checkpoints like coming up from Kirkuk.
Yeah.
And like, dude, if you're Arab, stay the fuck away, you know? So it's weird how that works. But I was up there for a couple of years, and then I don't remember why, but they said, we need you to rotate to Baghdad for like a week. And I went down to Baghdad, and the building I was in got mortared, and it literally blew the windows out.
Oof.
And I remember when the fucking building was getting hit, it was shaking. I dove under the bed, and so did my buddy. Shout out Double A.
Really? Was it like a lack of exposure thing, like getting back in?
It's exactly right, dude. It's exactly right.
That's crazy.
And he was in Ramadi with me, and him and I have been on rooftops getting RPG shot at us, laughing in the past.
Yeah.
And here we are, and we both looked at each other like, damn, fuck, dude, we're kind of pussies now.
Dude, that's super interesting though.
So we lost that combat hardness because after a couple of years of not being exposed to that, now you just have that physiological reaction to fear again, you know?
That's crazy.
And so I tell that story because, I mean, yeah, it's embarrassing that I guess I'm not battle hardened anymore, but it's just interesting. There's an ebb and flow to it, and you can't live in that state.
No, and that's exactly the point. You're self-aware enough to say it. Like, I see a lot of dudes who are just like in this constant state of like scanning the room and like this like weird, I don't even want to say weird, but just like, dude, you can't be on like that all the time and live like a healthy life. Like,
the hyper-vigilance thing. I talk about that a lot with veterans because when you're in Fallujah, you should probably have hyper-vigilance.
Yeah, you should probably turn it on, switch it on. Right.
But when you're at your 8-year-old's birthday party at the jump park, fucking chill out, dude.
Right. Like you don't need to sit to your back. To the wall and check the 8-year-olds and
dude, it's like
pat downs.
I mean, I've talked about this on the show a lot too, but one of the best quotes that I ever heard from a cadre member is, we train for probability, not possibility.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I was like, that has resonated with me for fucking 15 years now or whatever. Cause that just really, I mean, you can apply that to anything, dude.
Absolutely.
We need to be focused on what's probably going to happen, not what might happen, because those guys are putting their time and their energy and their resources into what might happen.
That's exactly right.
And the cadre member that told me this, I remember he goes, we were talking about clearing rooms. He goes, when you clear a room and you come into the kitchen, is it important to sweep the refrigerator for a white tiger? And it's like, wait, what the fuck's he talking about? He's like, well, I mean, fuck.
Could happen.
Saddam had tigers. You know what I'm saying? He's like, there's a possibility that one escaped from the Baghdad Zoo, and now it figured out how to crawl into this cabinet. Now there's a tiger in there. So should our TTPs be directed towards a white tiger in this room? And it sounds silly to say, but it paints the picture of his point. Like, of course not. And so the guy that's at the skate rink with his 8-year-old girl on her birthday, he's looking for that white tiger.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And that's
he's not seeing the dude in the room with an AK. I mean, proverbial, like the proverbial guy, right?
That's right.
Like,
yeah. And then you could go off on another tangent, but your mental health,
dude.
Like if you don't unplug, dude, the reason you're at the skate deck right now is because it's time to be dad.
Exactly right.
If you're not ready to be dad, then fucking go get on the next rotation back to Syria.
Right. That's exactly right. And, you know, I mean, you nailed it, right? The energy. So I always tell my guys, you have 3 resources, and this is it. You have energy, time, and talent. And time is fixed. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. Like you can't change it, right?
Yep.
The energy is variable. It's based on where you invest that. Okay. And your talent either goes up and down depending on where you invest that energy. So like you need to choose deliberately where you invest those things. Like where are you putting your time, right? Are you putting your time into something that is going to be an opportunity to grow your talent, right? Like, are you going to waste your energy on something that doesn't matter? Like the white tiger?
Yeah.
Like it's interesting because it goes back to that point of like, dude, like energy and time, you got to choose where you put it.
For sure.
You have to, because you have time thieves and energy thieves and joy thieves, man.
Yeah.
How was that as a cop? Like being able to assess a situation, like, was that stressful?
Dude, as a cop, it's very different.
Is it?
You know? And I'm the first to say that, I mean, they always say complacency kills, right? But it goes back to what you were saying as you can only be turned on for so long.
Absolutely.
We worked 12-hour shifts, and I was downtown Seattle or in the SeaTac area. 99% of your interactions with people, you are just another person.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so trying to act like this tactical guru 24/7 all the time. I remember I'd have talks with myself. It's like, instead of feeling like everybody is out to attack me and conducting myself accordingly, because now that's what I'm projecting to the community too.
Right.
In a time where the relationships between law enforcement, even before the George Floyd thing and before my video, like there's always some separation between the community and law enforcement.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I want to put out that energy that like I'm some fucking soldier that's ready to go to war? Or do I just want to be a friendly person that's easy to talk to? And then I always used to tell myself, I might be a little behind the power curve, but when I react, I'll react with more fucking violence and capability than they can imagine. And that is how I like navigated that space. Is that I'm not going to check every corner like I'm pieing it into a room. I'm just going to walk around it. And if somebody gets a drop on me, then they fucking get the drop on me. And it is what it is.
But you know you have the capability for violence if you need it, though.
Yes.
That's a difference.
That is a difference. And that's a weird thing that I talk to police officers about a lot, is that in the back of my mind, I already know that if push comes to shove, I've seen how I act under pressure and under those scenarios, and I'm proud of how I respond.
Yeah.
To not know how you respond to violence and be a police officer,
it's gotta be tough, man.
It would be tough.
Yeah.
But I think some people don't even think about that, you know?
For sure.
Dude, if you're not capable of extreme amounts of violence, I don't know. I couldn't be a cop.
Yeah.
Because every single person I talk to, just like I said, even suspects, like a big part of the port is criminal trespass. That's a huge part. It's almost their bread and butter because, as you know, Seattle allows whatever anybody wants to do at any time. They can put up a house right in front of your store and build their tent and have their fire pit. Seattle can't do anything, right?
Right.
But the Port of Seattle is very different because they're a corporation. So they don't allow that kind of behavior on inside of their jurisdiction.
So you have to break that down.
Yeah, because their jurisdiction is intermixed with Seattle. So all the homeless population, they don't understand like, okay, well, yesterday I slept here on the sidewalk and now today I can't. And a police officer is here, right? We would get criminal trespass complaints daily. And when you walk up to those people, 9 times out of 10, it's like, hey, this is private property owned by the Port of Seattle and you can't be here. And they'd be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. But then there's always the ones like, go fuck yourself. I sleep wherever I want, motherfucker. And it's like, okay. So anytime you walk up to someone, there's the potential that I might have to break this dude's fucking jaw.
Right.
And for me to not be capable of doing that.
Right.
What am I doing here?
Right.
You know? And I'm not the toughest dude in the world, but I know that 999 times out of 1,000, I'm going to come out on top fighting a homeless drug addict in Seattle.
Yeah.
So again, probability, right? Like I'm pretty sure I'm capable of coming out on top. So now I feel comfortable going and addressing this guy. But if in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh, fuck, man, if this goes bad, I'm going to get the shit beat out of me.
Right.
How can you do the job?
Shadow of doubt, man.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And that goes for any operational element. Like,
absolutely.
Can you imagine hitting a home in Afghanistan that you just got a HVT package for, and you're like, man, if there's some guys there, they're going to hand us our asses.
Contingencies, right? Like you got to plan for that stuff and figure out how you're going to approach it. And if you don't, that's when you get eaten alive.
Yeah. And part of contingency planning is, well, I should say the first aspect of it is having the capability.
Absolutely right.
If this gets taken here and I have to react here and I'm not capable of it, well then
don't do it. Buddy.
Yeah, don't do it, right?
Yeah, don't do it.
And bro, we could talk about police officers for the next 3 hours because I think that's a big problem with the profession now.
Yeah.
Is the lack of training and the lack of desire from the individual officer. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of cops that don't invest in their own skill sets.
That's interesting, man. So, okay, you're king for a day. How do you change it? How do you change? And I know it's a heavy question. It's impossible.
The weird thing is I feel like the only way to have cops out there that meet the standard that I would think would be necessary is purple belt level jiu-jitsu.
Really?
And shooting 3 times a month. I mean, even that doesn't sound like that much, right?
Right.
But cops are lucky if they shoot 3 times a year.
Really?
Oh, 100%. It's usually twice a year and it's usually a qual. And so a qual, as you know, a qual and a day of training are very different things.
Substantially different.
One is getting paperwork on the books so you have liability covered. Right. And the other is making you a better marksman.
Right. One's qualification, one's proficiency.
Exactly.
Substantially different.
And our 2 days a year were qualifications.
That's rough.
And so it 100% came on you to be proficient at your job. And I would do, shooting and jiu-jitsu, 99.9% of my training was done on my own.
Yeah.
And a lot of cops aren't willing to do that because that's not their hobbies.
Right.
You know,
it's time, taking away money.
And so I feel like you need to be, if you're going to carry a tool on your belt, you better be proficient with it. Mm-hmm. Like when I was in regiment, we do dry fires every morning.
Dude.
Half hour, draw your weapon, do a half hour dry fire training with the little pieces of electrical tape on the wall, you know?
Yep.
And then when you're done, you can go eat chow.
Yep.
And that was just normal life now. Like, well, speaking of dry fire, I don't know if you can see that's an iTarget system right here. That came in the mail yesterday. And it's a new...
I don't even know what that is.
So it's a dry fire system where it comes... Here, I'm gonna grab it real quick.
Yeah, I want to see this, yeah.
So it's a dry fire system that plugs into an app. I haven't even used it yet. It came yesterday.
No way.
It plugs into an app on your phone.
And you get feedback?
And you get feedback on your training.
No way.
You see this? So this board registers the laser that is fired out of this.
Oh, like a bore sight?
It's a 9mm bullet.
Dude, no way.
That fits into your chamber.
Huh.
And then there's an app that connects to that dry fire board that gives you real-time feedback. So that's pretty cool, huh? I have a buddy that has this that loves it.
I need to get this for my company.
Yeah.
I just blew my mind.
And you can get it in 5.56.
Really?
They don't have it in 308 because I wanted one for that beast over there in the corner.
Yeah, I saw that monster, yeah.
But every other caliber they have.
That's awesome.
You know? So, we're going on another tangent, but the whole point of what I'm saying is if you want to do a job that requires proficiency in something, it has to be on you. Mm-hmm. It can't be on your leadership. Obviously, your leadership can schedule training, create protocols, try and motivate you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you want to be a police officer, you need to know how to put your hands on someone. And if you're not willing to do that, you should probably reevaluate if this is really the career for you.
Right.
The other thing that I think police are lacking is everyone's always focused on the combat aspects. Well, just like I was, like, what are the first 2 things I said? Shooting and fighting, right? But dude, the biggest thing is having communication skills.
People skills, absolutely.
Knowing how to, like you just said, empathy.
Yep.
Like being kind to people.
Well, dude, you just said it. Like those 10 interactions that you have, depending on how you lead that interaction, is probably going to determine the outcome.
100%, dude. And so my approach, how I thought about things as a police officer is, I think it was no, it wasn't Tim Kennedy. I almost gave him credit. It was Mattis, General Mattis.
Yeah.
Is like treat everyone with respect, but have a plan to kill everyone in the room. Yep. Right. Yep. Tim, I've seen Tim retweet that or whatever. That's why his name came to mind. But That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's how you need to conduct yourself as a police officer. If you walk up to a car that you pulled over for going 10 over, hey, you know what I pulled you over for today? It's like, well, guess what? Your wife's probably going 10 over right now too, officer, right?
Right. So
you could approach that person two very different ways. And even if you're going to write them a ticket, which I don't believe in writing tickets.
That's awesome.
I fucking hate. I didn't write, for the record, I wrote 0 tickets after probation.
This is a paperwork thing, right? Because I'm gonna say that like that's the most Ranger thing I've ever heard in my life. Like,
no, it's not just paperwork, dude. It's like
the principle behind it.
I speed all the time.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So how can I, with any integrity, take your money from you for doing something that I'm going to be doing in 6 hours when I get off shift?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, fair point.
And so like, it just never sat well with me, and I fucking hated it, dude. So I wouldn't do it. And that was one thing cool about the port. 0 tickets required.
That's awesome.
Like, they do require a certain amount of traffic stops, just showing you're out, you're working, you're interacting with people. I mean, traffic stops with a lot of agencies is like a show of force.
Right.
You know, if people see cars pulled over with the lights on, with police officers talking to the driver,
it's a deterrent.
That lets you know our officers have our eyes open.
Yeah.
And they're watching what's going on. And I pulled people over often, but I would usually pull people over for equipment malfunctions, expired tabs, things that when you drive by, it's like, oh, 100%, there's a problem right there. Pull them over. And then I would talk to them kindly.
Right.
And be like, hey, just so you know, your right taillight's burned out. And I'd be like, the last time I checked my taillight on my civilian car was probably a year ago. So I get it.
Right.
You were not PMCSing vehicles every morning.
It's probably a traumatic experience for them too, you know, like, it's not fun getting pulled over.
No. And so I think a cop should want the person leaving that interaction to think, man, he was a cool guy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That was good.
You know?
Right.
Instead of just the narrative of all cops are dicks,
right.
You know? But a big part of a successful police organization is a good relationship with the public. And that doesn't come from jiu-jitsu or shooting. That comes from just being a nice, kind person.
Right.
You know? And so now, if I was king for a day, I want people that have empathy, people that are compassionate, people that are nice, people that are like willing to engage, but also have the capabilities of someone that's ready to fucking kill you at a moment's notice.
Right.
And if that's the standard that you're going to set, I feel like the pool of people you have to recruit from is fucking almost non-existent. Because now it's like, all right, well, if you want to be a police officer, it has to be guys coming out of the regiment or out of the teams.
Right.
You know?
Right. And people don't understand. I didn't understand like how large the police force as a whole is.
Yeah.
You know, like town, city, municipality, state, sheriff. Like, dude, there's a lot.
They're everywhere, dude.
Everywhere.
And then the other side of it is, and I tend to agree with this, is that a lot of police agencies think that the demographic should be somewhat of a representation of that community.
Interesting.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
speak the language.
This is us and we are you. Like, I get that, you know?
Right.
But if you're 100 pounds overweight and you treat people like shit, like, I'm not going to call them out by name, but there was an officer on my department that was 100 pounds overweight and notoriously treated everyone like shit. It's like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? And those are the officers where it's just about a paycheck. And
man,
I mean, dude, think about if people came into the regiment for a paycheck.
Dude.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so why do you want to be a Ranger? I don't really want to be a Ranger, but
I get $22,000 a year. It's awesome. You know, I get jump pay.
Yeah.
It's sweet.
Bro, I remember when I got to fucking regiment as a private, my paychecks were 3 something. And that was under the Clinton administration.
Right.
And when George Bush got inaugurated, our paychecks nearly doubled.
Right.
And so, dude, now I was making $600 a paycheck. Bro, we're going to Hot Topic.
Right.
And we're blowing our money on
$16,000 a year, baby.
Slipknot t-shirts and, and posters for the barracks.
Exactly right. Yeah. And that's, dude, I mean, you nailed it. I just read this book. I'll have to send you what it is, but it talks about like hygiene factors in work and motivating factors in work. And the hygiene factors are like salary, job security, free time. Like you can give those things, but only to an extent. Like if you don't have purpose, if you don't have motivation, if you don't have achievement, if you don't have a reason to be there, like if you don't like the work itself, no matter how much salary you get, it's never going to satisfy that motivating factor. And like it's not going to work. Like you don't, like you said, you don't join the regiment to get 22,000 a year.
Yeah. And that's another, it's interesting you brought that up, because if you don't like the work itself,
dude, do something else.
I didn't like the work as a police officer.
Yeah, right.
I never did. There was days that I loved it, and there was days that I hated it. But overall, putting that uniform on every morning, it was never me.
Why did you do it?
I think it's a natural transition.
Yeah.
You're a soldier.
Yep.
You get out, and dude, I was training jiu-jitsu, and a guy on my team was a deputy, and he's like, bro, you'd be great at this, And I'm like, well, what is it? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, you're submitting your application online and sitting in an interview panel, and now I'm doing it. Right. And I feel like it just kind of happened. At no point in my life, again, just like I said, I never wanted to be a Ranger. At no point in my life was like, I can't wait to be a police officer,
Right.
And then you fast forward and dude, it's like anything. Before you know it, you've been in something years, and you've invested all this time. And all my coworkers are talking about they're left to retirement. I got 16 more years and this and that. And it never sat well with me, because it's like, and I also think I look at life a little more through a different lens, because like guys like us, once you've been downrange and you've had close calls and you realize like, oh fuck, dude, this is finite.
My time is, I've got a terminal sentence.
This is my, dude, this is my one shot.
Right.
When you feel your candle burning and you're not enjoying it, it's like, I got to fucking do something,
So what would you say to soldiers? Because dude, you're right. It is a natural transition. Dudes get out of the Army and they become cops. Like, what would you say to those guys? Because I have so many guys that are like, I'm going to get out and I'm going to join the police academy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, one of my best friends is a cop in Indy. I'm like, let me put you in touch with him, right? Like talk to him and understand what the job is.
Yeah.
Like, what would you offer those guys?
This is what I would tell them. I'm not going to try and discourage anyone from being a police officer if that's your calling. Okay. If it's not your calling, if it's just something that you are, well, they get full benefits, they get $120,000 a year. Some departments actually pay pretty well.
Yeah.
It's going to eat your soul. Okay. Like if you're doing it because it's convenient or because it comes with a good benefit package. I mean, I often say, I don't know one officer that's been doing it for more than a decade that's not extremely disgruntled.
Oh, I could only imagine.
Not one. Every cop. And I actually don't think that is a profession that's even sustainable. It
can be.
It's like deploying for years on end.
The thing, I did a TDY trip with NYPD. I was looking at like subterranean breaching and stuff. So I worked with like their, I forgot what it was. It was like their special response team.
Mm-hmm.
They did like the breaching stuff. But I remember the guy was like talking, and he was like, he like got on his radio. He's like, oh yeah, we have a jumper on the Brooklyn Bridge. And I was like, are you going to take care of that? He's like, no, don't worry about it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this dude deals with this stuff every single day and then goes home to a family.
Yeah.
And he's like, you get it, right? I'm like, no, dude, like we deploy for 4 months and then we get 2 weeks of leave and then we go into a new train up.
Yeah.
So there's never that constant exposure, which has to wear on somebody.
And you get to decompress during that time too.
Yeah.
No, I almost think the career as a law enforcement officer is not sustainable. That's why I think everybody's disgruntled. That's why I think there's so many problems in the profession. And don't get me wrong, there's some guys that do a great job and they love it, right? Or there's other guys that might not love it because they're homicide detectives and they're dealing with gnarly shit all the time, but they're good at their job. They know that they are serving a purpose, and they're grinders. Like Scott Wells, I had him on. He worked homicide for 7 years and he's like, I barely slept because every case, if I wasn't giving it 100% of my energy, it would eat away at me because I knew there was someone out there that deserved for me to figure out who killed their daughter, Right. And so, and that kind of stuff is awesome and we need them.
Sure.
If we didn't have that, society would fall apart in about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That's why the defund the police stuff is the most asinine shit I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. It just
makes no sense, dude.
Like, I don't know why you wouldn't, and I'm not like trying to, dude, I don't know anything about the police. I'm not trying to get political with it, but like more training has to be better, right? Like
in what, I mean, apply that to anything.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're going to a jiu-jitsu tournament. I'm gonna be like, hey, Greg, we're going to do this new approach where you train less.
Yeah.
You know, like
fucking, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Insert that anywhere. Fucking soccer player, a pool, you're playing pool, you know, let's train less.
Right. Like
it's really bizarre, you know, but, yeah, I just think there's not an answer that's going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
I just don't think there is. I don't think we have the resources. I don't think we have the money. And then I also don't think I don't think the individual police officer, the majority of them, have the desire. So what do you do with that?
That's rough.
You know?
That's rough.
And I mean, every time, and here's another thing about being like part of an operational element is, like when I was in the regiment, I've talked about this on the show before, like my squad or my platoon go take down a building and it felt surgical, you know? Now we weren't like on the fucking level of the unit guys or anything like that. We were all 20-year-old Rangers, but we got really good at what we did.
Yeah.
Because we did it together
all the time.
All the time.
Did you like when you see someone under nods and you see how they walk?
Exactly right. Yeah. You know who it is.
Yep.
You know who it is just based on their gait, you know?
That's exactly right.
And then when I got out and I started doing it with police officers, because I was not part of it was called a special response team. It was like a SWAT team in LA.
Yeah.
And those guys were pretty good. Most of them were veterans and we trained a lot. But when I was new to the team, it was like I didn't know anything because I hadn't done it with those guys.
Right.
So you have to build that muscle memory, really not for yourself, but for how you integrate into the team. And then knowing those guys and how they, like you said, how they walk and how they go around a corner. And I remember hitting this training house over and over and over and over. And now it's like, okay, like I feel pretty good with these guys. And again, I have a group text message. I'm still part of the Los Angeles special response team group thread.
Right.
I'm close with all those guys to this day.
That's awesome.
But my point of that is, if you don't put the hours in, like if 3 cops show up to a house on a domestic violence call and have exigency to enter the residence and they are going to clear it, bro, to have any kind of tactical proficiency with showing up and having 3 or 4 random people, especially if they're from different departments, probably have different SOPs.
Dude, a house is a platoon objective.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Yeah.
I cleared like a fucking 50,000 foot warehouse with 2 other officers one day.
That's a battalion plus size objective.
And one of the cops that was with me, he's a real cool guy. He was new to the department and he was an older guy. He was like 50, right? He became a cop later in life just because that was something that he was always interested in doing. But he was a physical stud, nice guy. And he looked at me and he's like, hey man, like this used to be what you did. So like, I'll take lead from you, man. And I said, just so you know,
this isn't what I did.
I said, just so you know, this is a minimum as a company sized element.
Oh, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said, we got 3 people. So don't think of this as clearing the building. We're going to sweep the building. Everything in front of us is unknown. And then guess what?
Everything behind
us is unknown, dude.
Yeah, people don't understand that. Like when you clear something, you leave something.
You have to hold that.
You gain terrain.
You either hold it or you lose it.
Exactly right.
That's it, man.
That's exactly right.
And so, and 99.9% of the time that a law enforcement agency is clearing a building, they're sweeping it. They're not clearing it because they're not maintaining. That's
scary, man.
And so, yeah, the likelihood that someone could circle back on you, or not even come at you, but just maintain undetected.
Right.
It's not out of the realm of possibility unless it's straight up like a SWAT team raid.
Right.
Where they do it tactically and they do hold ground, you know, but.
Well, I mean, the most dangerous part of an operation is the exfil.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, dude.
People don't understand that. Like that's a deliberate planning process and the building's not clear and secure until you back clear, you know? So like 3 people, you can't do that.
No, it's impossible.
How long did that take?
Oh, fuck, dude. A couple hours.
Where you just die into?
Bro, it's funny because that was the first time that I had held an AR at low ready.
Oh, dude.
For 2 hours.
Smoked.
Dude. Smoked, dude.
Destroyed. Absolutely destroyed.
And it's funny. Yeah. It's funny that this came up because I think of like, and I don't even want to get into all the political turmoil right now, but there's a lot of people buying kit, buying guns. And it's like, dude.
Like, do you have plates in right now, buddy?
Yeah, if you're not training with that stuff.
Right.
all the time,
dude,
it's going to kick the shit out of you.
Go do a mile run and then put a kit on.
Yeah.
And do that same mile run and see if your time's the same. Like, let me tell you, it's not. Yeah. Like, it's not, dude.
Spoiler alert.
It's not. It's not. It sucks. Like, we did a training event like a few months ago, and dude, I'm a house cat now, like in my new job. Like I'm an HHC commander, so I'm very like administrative. But I wore a kit and it was like 8 hours in kit. And I was like, dude, like muscles are sore that I didn't know existed.
Yeah. You know? Isn't that, it's bizarre, man.
Yeah. You lose it so quickly, man.
But the last thing that I'll say about the police profession, which I feel like almost makes it unsustainable, is they expect you to wear so many hats.
Yeah.
Like
social worker.
Yeah, dude. Like you don't know what call's coming down the pipe. And so for the last half hour, we've been talking about tactics, being fit, having jujitsu, being able to run your M4 for 2 hours, like all that stuff. Like
was that 10% of the job? Probably
fucking 2% maybe, you know? But then just like you said, hey, I got a jumper on the bridge. Oh, okay. Well, now I have this guy who's in emotional turmoil and I have to figure out how to fucking connect with this guy, show him empathy. And I've personally never dealt with that. So I'm not talking out of experience. I never had that call come through. Right. But there's plenty of officers that have. And now you're expected to, I mean, we're not fucking psychiatrists.
Right.
But now you got a guy standing on a bridge and then insert anybody's bad day problem here.
Yeah.
And now you're supposed to come up with a solution. And it's almost impossible. You know, like I'm just a man. I have my little specialty that I like, my experience that I can draw from. But big picture, there's a lot of shit that I don't have experience to draw from for this situation. And it's just kind of, I think it's almost unreasonable. I actually think maybe departments should specialize which officers respond based on their expertise.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And I mean, that's
the same thing with
logistically,
like saw gunner, breacher. Yeah.
Logistically, that might be a nightmare though, because there's a reason it's called patrol.
Right.
You got guys spread out throughout the county or throughout the jurisdiction that if something happens here, this person is closest, boom, they take it.
Right.
So the likelihood of that person being most suited for that call, you know? And so I don't know what the solution is, but one thing I've had people recommend is like, maybe you have like an administrative team and a pipe hitter team.
Right.
So it's like working traffic, working trespass, working petty theft. And now those people respond to that. And then you have the team that responds to felonious shit, like fucking robberies in progress, the serious stuff.
Right.
But then the only downside of that is a lot of times when you're responding to something that you might not think is a big deal, then the guy fucking pulls out a gun.
Totally.
And now it is a big deal.
Right.
So there's no cookie cutter answer that's really going to solve all these different problems, you know? Who fucking knows?
I couldn't imagine, man. Like I said, one of my best friends is a cop in Indy, and just hearing his stories, like he's a really calm dude, 4 combat deployments, but just, man, I have nothing but respect for people who do that. It's hard, man.
I will say, if you're drawn to a life of public service, then if that's why you want to be a police officer, I have lots of friends that work for the fire department,
dude,
that love it.
I've heard nothing but good. If I transitioned out of the Army right now, I'd be a firefighter. Dude,
I got a buddy who just hit 22 years with Seattle Fire Department last week. And he goes, bro, I'm doing another 20.
No way.
Another 20. Yeah.
No way.
And I mean, he's fucking like 47. Super fit though.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, my first reaction was like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? He's like, I like going to work. And so it's just like you said, if you like going to work, if it's not about the paycheck, you like your mission, that's a totally different thing now,
dude,
you know? And so from my experience, my buddies that are with the fire department, that mission feels more rewarding to them. And it comes with, sure, they deal with things that are hard to see, kids getting hurt, and people in car wrecks and stuff like that. A lot of it's
probably EMS, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, the majority of it.
Yeah.
And in Seattle, a lot of it's dealing with fucking homeless drug addicts right now.
That'd be tough, man.
They're doing overdose stuff constantly.
Dude, that'd be tough.
It's tough, man.
Yeah.
But regardless, I mean, that aside, the mission has a lot of validity to it.
Yeah.
And it feels rewarding.
And that brotherhood aspect's there too, you know, like that. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure like the fire station is like a platoon or a company or something.
And I mean, if you have validity, if your job is giving you validity, like that's something that a paycheck can't provide.
Yeah.
And I never felt much validity as a cop.
Yeah.
Like I remember being in the military, like, I mean, there was just times we'd be in formation and like taps is playing or whatever. And it's like, you're tearing up because the emotional aspect of who you're around and what's happening and what you're a part of, it can be overwhelming at times.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I had that a lot in the military.
Yeah.
I never had that once as a police officer.
That's crazy.
Not one time.
And you're doing the same, not the same stuff, but you're doing pretty dangerous stuff, man. Like putting your emotions out there and being drained all the time. To not have that purpose to drive you is like you're running on E.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I noticed is vastly different. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this because they have different experiences. But the leadership that I had in the military, and not all of it was great. I mean, you heard me talk about some of the things with company commanders, like, you know, but the leadership that I was surrounded by, those people had my fucking back.
Yeah.
And I knew if push comes to shove, we will die together.
Right.
That's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And when you know that you have that looking out for you, it just creates something that, I mean, it's almost indescribable.
Yeah.
And it feels powerful because it's like, okay, we're looking for this tribal connection as people. And it really fulfills that when the people that you're surrounded with, you know, no matter how bad this goes, even up into my death, we're in it together.
Yeah.
Then you're good, man. And I don't know why that is. Like dying's dying, right? But there's something inside of you that it's just, if you know that this person is willing to endure anything with you, all right, fuck it. I'm good. Let's go. I didn't have that as a cop either. I never felt like I liked people in my chain of command. I had good relationships with everybody, but it wasn't that just 100% understanding, hey, we're in this together to the death. And that's probably why a lot of veterans have problems once they get out, because the reality of it is, you're not going to find that bond again.
Dude, I tell people this all the time, you know, like they talk about PTSD and or, you know, PTS or whatever. Like you don't need combat to have PTS or you like, you know, the experience of not having a belonging. And when you get out of the military, dude, you lose that.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Dudes making that transition, they look for it in so many things, you know, like skydiving, rock climbing, like dangerous activities or something to find this bond. But like, dude, you're never going to have that again. And you need to make peace with that before you get out of the military.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's funny you say that because last week's guest was an RI from 5th RTB.
Oh, no way.
And
he probably gave me a no-go. Son of a bitch. What's his name?
Bonres. Do you know that name by chance? RI Bonres.
I'll go through the paperwork and we'll see.
But, and I didn't know this until last week's show, but there's guys that are like washouts from airborne school or whatever.
Yeah.
And then their whole enlistment is Op 4 in Dahlonega.
Oh, yeah.
That's, hey, you're 4 years in the military, Op 4 in Dahlonega. Yep. That's it, man.
Yeah. Merrill platoon, I think.
Yeah. And so he was in charge of that platoon.
Whoa, really?
And he's like, bro, those guys get out and have PTS because
it's a small community, man.
Even though it's not combat, it's like, those guys live together for 4 years.
Yeah.
They're ambushing Rangers together every night.
Dude, they're in the rain. They're shitting in holes.
Yeah.
You know, like you're losing sleep together.
And then boom, now you're at Home Depot stocking shelves.
God.
And it's like, it's just to your point. It's like, you don't have to get blown up to have this depression that follows leaving the military because a big part of that, and I've said this for years, a big part of the PTS that comes from leaving the military is simply losing your brotherhood.
For sure.
That's it, man.
For sure.
You know?
Was there a gap between your military service and contracting time?
Yes. And
did you experience that?
It's so funny you say that. And looking back on it now, I can connect the dots a little better, you know? But no, you're exactly right. I got out of the regiment and everybody is going to go to college because you got the GI Bill.
Yeah.
Right? So I lived in a house with another Ranger.
Oh, man.
Who was in my team. He somehow got into the regiment on a 3-year enlistment.
Okay.
And everybody else is 4 years, 18 weeks or whatever.
Yep.
And so I was his team leader. He was my 203 gunner. And then we ETS together and got a house together. Oof. And then another roommate was a Marine Corps scout sniper that just EAS from the Marine Corps.
So you still have that bond.
We had 3 veterans living in a small house and it was fucking just nonstop shenanigans. Right?
Because that's weird. That's unique because you never left that environment.
So I had that to a certain extent.
Right.
But I don't feel like, and also as 22, I was young, I did my first enlistment, got out. And then I was in college. I was only in college for probably 6 months before I got a phone call. It's like, hey, have you ever heard of triple canopy?
Really?
I'm like, no. He goes, well, a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy is recruiting dudes from special operations. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, well, what is it? And he goes, well, they're paying $27,000 a month. And I was like, I don't give a fuck what they're doing.
Yeah, you can do anything.
Let's go.
Right.
And so I was right back into it pretty quick. And then it wasn't, I got to a point because I was deploying all the time that I realized like, I don't think I ever want to be completely disconnected from this lifestyle again. Because even though I wasn't in the military, I was deploying all the time. Yeah. I was living on FOBs. I was running the streets of Iraq with like bunch of special operations dudes. And that's when I put in my package to go flight school. Oh, really? Yeah. So I had a break in service. While I was contracting, I was like, I need to stay in. I need to do more, Right. And then I hemorrhaged my retina in flight school doing CrossFit. Classic. Yeah, I know, right?
Do triathlons, kids. Do triathlons.
Handstand push-ups, dude.
Man.
Hemorrhage my retina. And people probably getting sick of the story because I've told it several times. But
shame on me for not.
I got a blind spot in my vision, right in the middle of the workout. I'm upside down doing push-ups, and then bang, and my eye went partially blind, and I was like, I'm stroking out, dude. Like something's fucked up.
Right. Someone cooking toast.
Yeah. So I went to the hospital. In hindsight, I wouldn't have said a word.
Yeah.
I would have just fucking sucked it up.
You'd be a 160th pilot right now, ripping around little birds.
Well, dude, we'll go into that next. But yeah, they said you hemorrhage your retina from all the pressure in your head, and the blood pooled up behind your retina, and now your retina's enabled to reflect light through it and see.
No way.
And they said it can be up to 18 months before your eye reabsorbs the blood, and eye problems in flight school, you're done, dude.
Right.
And so they told me, they said, you can reclass or we can medically outprocess you.
Reclass to another warrant MLS?
Okay. Yep. And the only thing that even remotely sounded interesting would be SF.
SF, yep.
And I was like, the whole reason I came to aviation is because I don't want to live under a rucksack my whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I said, outprocess me.
Yeah.
Hey, and if you're listening, okay, this is a pro tip. If they ever offer you that, make sure that you can still get medical retirement, because they offered me another position. It didn't come with any type of medical retirement. Oof. None. And I was 26 or something at the time. I was like, whatever, I don't need medical retirement.
Oh, man.
But it's like, I have buddies that are like, you were medically retired with no medical retirement? You got fucked, dude. But
dude, someone right now has an OER bullet that says Greg Anderson, separated without retirement.
Yeah. So, yeah, dude. But no, it was crazy how that all played out. But again, I'm not upset about it, because there's probably a high tension wire somewhere with my name on it, or a fucking cliff in Afghanistan. I mean, we lost birds right and left, but no, as far as 160th goes, I got talked to in flight school.
I bet. Yeah.
And they said, because normally, what is it? Green platoon? Is that what it's called when you're the new guy in 160th? You have to go through an assessment, and I might be butchering this. So
it's pretty tough from what I understand.
Yeah.
Here it's not awesome.
If you're a 160th pilot and I'm butchering this,
relax, dude. Just fly us to the objective.
No, you can write me a hateful message on Instagram like everybody else does. But what they were finding is, if you came from regiment, if you'd worked with 160th in the past, you kind of understand how they do business.
Yeah.
And so instead of going and flying for like the 101st for 2 years and then applying for 160th selection, if you have a history of working with them, they'll let you attend their selection right out of flight school.
That's awesome.
And they said part of what they were finding is that, I mean, every unit has a way of doing things, right? But the big Army versus 160th has some very dramatic differences in their doctrine.
Yeah.
And they were finding they were having to untrain guys, train things out of guys.
Sure.
And they're like, it's better to have a dude from regiment with just an open book than persons that have bad habits ingrained in them.
Yeah.
So that was my long-term plan, but whatever. never happened. So
did you go back to contracting after that?
Yep.
You did?
Yeah. I contracted for a while, went and hid warrant officer course, a little bit of flight school, and then right back to contracting.
That's crazy.
You want to know what's crazy is when I got medicaled out, I was in Fort Rucker and my wife was living in Seattle at the time. And I told her, and then I put my feelers out there, and I had a buddy hit me up and he goes, "Hey, we have a spot open in a team in Erbil." That's when I ended up going north. Right. Yeah. And he goes, "But we'd need you to deploy in like 48 hours. Oh. And I said, "Done." So I packed my entire house into my Mustang and put it on a shipping truck and sent that home to Seattle and went right back to Iraq, dude.
What I gathered from it is that you had a Mustang as an E5 in the Ranger Regiment.
No. Worse, dude. My first contract, like $27,000 a month, dude.
Yeah.
Like 90 days in Iraq, almost $100,000,
That's
22
insane.
years old. I had a motorcycle. I had a Humvee, not an
Humvee?
H2, a Humvee.
And you drove here like, this really sucks. This is super uncomfortable.
And then this was 2005 when the new Mustangs came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never had a new car. I have to have one.
Of course you have to.
And you want to know what's funny? I sold that car to a friend of mine like 4 months ago.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that was my car from then all the way until now. So
it was an investment, dude. That was an investment.
I put like 160,000 K on that thing or something. So, well, fuck, man. I went off on a tangent. I thought I had a point, but
no, it was awesome, man. It fired me up.
So when you were done with your platoon time in the regiment,
yeah,
how does that come to an end? Because just like you said, Abrams Charter, you do your time in the regiment. Now you're going to cycle back out. That time's coming. Like that would almost be depressing, I feel like, as an NCO.
As an NCO, sure. Like, they do charter time as well, but as an officer, it's coming.
It's just understood as you go into it.
Yeah. And the problem is, man, like a lot of officers, junior officers especially, will be like, I can't imagine life outside of the Ranger Regiment. You're like, dude, you're summer help. You've been here for 2 years. Like, go forward and take what you've learned and make the force better and like be the leader that the regiment taught you how to be.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just like, I'm going to go to the captain's career course, which is where you learn how to be a company commander, and then go to a unit and be a company commander. And then like, there's other things beyond that company command job. So for me, it was just like, dude, like I have an obligation to fulfill. Like I truly believed it, man. And I couldn't have been luckier. I had a first sergeant who was a regiment dude. The company needed the energy, and like our like med pro status and like property, it was terrible. Dude, it was terrible. But we were like, we turned them into killers, man. It was like a really cool experience to make those guys like see what you need to do to be like a proficient killer. And that was the rewarding part for me, knowing that someone invested in me and my time in the regiment. And then it was my time to go pay it forward and invest what I learned into a conventional formation. It's been awesome, man.
That's cool.
Like there's challenges, obviously, it's tough.
Well, I mean, I would imagine the biggest challenge going from the regiment to a regular line unit, the regiment, you can get rid of your non-performers.
Dude.
Like if you fail your PT, you're gone.
Dude, you nailed it. And that's the hard part too, man, because with an RFS, a dude can be gone in 3 days.
Yep.
A week, the dude's gone.
And so for people that aren't familiar with what we're talking about, because we're throwing around military acronyms. So RFS is called Release for Standards. And it doesn't matter who you are, E1 through the sergeant major, right? Like if you fuck up, if you do something that's like morally, or obviously if it's illegal, but if you do anything that's like against the Ranger standards, you could be looking at RFS. But not only that, if you fall below the understood standards, like one of my best friends in Ranger Regiment, who we grew up together as privates, and he was a stud everywhere.
Yeah.
Except he sucked at pull-ups. That's
RFS,
it.
man.
And he got RFS'd. And I remember looking at the system thinking, man, they got rid of him, but then we got this other guy who's kind of a shitbag.
Yeah.
And he's not very good anywhere, but he can meet all the standards.
It's tough.
It is tough because there's no right answer, right? You have to have your standards, because if you don't,
you have to uphold them, man.
And so when I look back on that, you didn't do pull-ups. That's on you.
Right.
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 And you got nobody to blame, but that's a powerful thing, because at any time anybody's on the chopping block, what that is intended to do is make everybody continuously hold themselves and each other to a higher standard.
Yep.
And it might be you might be a pull up or two shy, and that sucks, but you're no longer a Ranger.
Yeah.
Whereas now in an infantry unit that doesn't have a RFS policy.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine you got some guys that are just unwilling to do anything. So like what is, I mean, I don't know if you want to go into too much detail, but what does a shitbag look like in an infantry line unit?
So I tell my guys this, man, it's like the 10-80-10 principle. 10% of the guys are going to succeed no matter what you do, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to be pipe hitters no matter what. They're going to go to Ranger school. They're going to go to sniper school. 10% are going to succeed. 80% are going to show up. They're there for the GI Bill. You know, they'll be on time. They just exist. Mm-hmm. And the bottom 10% suck. They just, you need to take your emotions out of the equation and get them out of the Army because they're viral. You know, they'll start to bleed into that middle 80%. And success is taking that middle 80% and making them those top performers and like guys that are intrinsically motivated. So to your point, like, you know, a shitbag or, you know, a non-performer or someone who breaks the standard or does something illegal, immoral, unethical, it can look like anything.
Yeah.
What the problem is, or the difficulty, not the problem, the difficulty with the separation system is that it can take 9 to 12 months to get them out of the Army.
Yeah. Which
people don't know that. They think it's like Google where it's like you do something wrong and you're chaptered.
Yeah.
It's not, dude. It's not. And
so think about that. When you were an officer in the Ranger Regiment, you could get somebody out of there in 3 days.
Dude.
Now it takes a year.
I was lucky in 25th. I didn't have any bad dudes in 25th that I needed a chapter. So I never dealt with a chapter. Then I was an XO for a company. And then I went to regiment where I didn't have to deal with separations, chapters, UCMJ.
Yeah. And just to be clear, RFS is available. But by the time you make it to regiment, most guys have the will to be there. Yeah. And you don't see it very often.
You don't, but it's a tool, though.
Yeah, it's a tool. And everybody knows it's on the table.
Yeah. And, you know, you can get like an RFS in return. Dudes leave and then come back a year later or whatever. And, dude, it's a good tool. I've seen it work. Like, it's like, this isn't working out right now.
Yeah.
This is business. Like, we're in the business of being professionals and you're not meeting the standard.
Yeah.
But in the conventional Army, for better or for worse, there's a long process that takes a lot of resources from your company, man. So like if I have an E4, let's say I have a sergeant that gets in trouble. Mm-hmm. He needs an escort to his meetings. Who's going to escort a sergeant?
Yeah. A staff sergeant.
A staff sergeant. Yeah. Right. And what's a staff sergeant supposed to be doing?
Squad leader.
He's supposed to be training his squad.
Pulled away from his more important duties for some administrative bullshit.
Right. And that's what I tell the guys. I'm like, hey, like, you know, these rules are in place because we need to be as lethal as possible and put as many resources towards the problem as possible. And when you fuck up or we need to separate you, it's just like a casualty on the battlefield, man.
Yeah.
Someone else is carrying that litter now. You know, like there's a staff sergeant carrying that fucking litter. And that takes it away from like hungry E2s, E3s, E4s who need that training. And that's their most formative time.
Yeah.
It's tough.
So something that would be interesting to get your perspective on it, because you've had being a company commander, that's a pretty high level of leadership, you know?
Yeah, mid-level.
Like,
but
it's mid-level, but I mean, like when I look at I talk about leadership a lot, but most of what I speak of is what I observed on the receiving end.
Sure.
You know what I mean? As a team leader, I was in charge of fucking 5 guys.
Yeah.
And then as in a contract, some of my contracts that I took, I was the team leader of like maybe 10, 12 guys.
Right.
Those are small teams.
Right.
But I do think the strongest leadership principles are honed at the smallest level.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
But something that I've always wondered as a leader of like a company would be similar to like, say, a chief of police with 100 officers under him.
Yeah,
right?
I have 200 dudes.
Okay. So, and something that I've seen in law enforcement is tons of energy and effort goes into your shitbags.
That's exactly right, man.
And it's like they are the drain because leadership is always like, well, he did this, so now we need to document it, and then we need to try and we're going to have a hearing and blah, and on and on and on and on. And I remember I used to say, if I was a chief of police, you know what I'd do? I would put that guy in an administrative position and I would let him collect his paycheck and I wouldn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Because instead of putting 90% of my energy into the 10% of shitbags, just consider them a combat loss.
Yeah.
put them over in the corner, ignore them. Yeah, I don't care. You're collecting a paycheck on taxpayers' dollars, not doing your job. I don't give a fuck. What's more beneficial to the whole unit is if that 90% of my energy goes into, like you said, the upper 10%.
Absolutely right.
How do I build those guys?
Absolutely right.
And then the people in the middle are going to see that and be like drawn to that, right? But I mean, it's easy to say into a microphone, but when you got a problem, you probably have to deal with it, you know? And so, I mean,
you have to remove emotion from the equation. And that's the difficult part. Like, dude, I remember like in my first few months of command, like someone would do something and it would be like, oh, he did what? And, you know, like, I'd be like, what? And now I'm like, okay, like, let's just separate him.
Yeah.
Get him out of the army. And like, look, he's not a bad person unless he did something like heinous, you know, like, you got a DUI, like it happens.
Alcohol related incidents are probably like one of your biggest things.
Huge. And that it's almost like learn from each one of them. Like, how did we fail on the leadership level? Like, what can we do to ensure this doesn't happen again? And the fact is, like, it will happen again, not probably. So like, you can't get pissed off about it. You need to give him the support he needs because this is a traumatic experience in his life, and he probably has a family, and this is gonna, he's gonna lose his job. He's gonna separate under general conditions.
Yeah.
But dude, you can't get pissed off, and you just have to just remove them.
And I'm sure this is no longer the case, but do you know how 2nd Ranger Battalion in 1999 prevented alcohol related incidents?
Was it Volcano Watch?
No, I don't know what Volcano Watch is.
Okay.
Inside of the fence.
Yeah.
The drinking age is 18.
Sure.
And we had our own bar. I used to have, there was a dude that I used to play heavy metal with, and the guys would come down and we'd jam, and we had our own bar inside of Alpha Company.
Yeah.
And it had fucking like, it looked exactly like a bar. It had the stools and the wall behind with liquor on it and stuff.
Have you been back there recently?
I don't even think it exists anymore, does it?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay. Yeah. But no, my thing is, it's like, and that's what First Sergeant used to say. He's like, hey, the bar is there because inside of the red fence, you guys can party. If you guys go outside of the red fence and party, well, what happens is going to happen. And now you're looking at, if you get in trouble drinking, well, now we have a fucking problem.
Yeah. RFS, UCMJ.
And bro, and it's also just team building, like the whole platoon. Obviously, all the unmarried guys, Friday night, you're at the Alpha Company bar, fucking taking Jaeger bombs and having fucking Pantera on,
Right. Like, it's those 90s thing I heard in my life.
Well, dude, it was the 90s, man.
Acid wash jeans and Converse.
But yeah, it's crazy. Well, one thing I wanted to touch on, dude, we're already at 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Are you serious?
Yeah, shit's fucking,
dude, time warp, man. This is awesome.
Another thing we were talking about when you got here was being a commander during the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
And this has been such a weird time of everybody's life. And I know like it affected every profession differently.
Yeah.
But what's it like being a company commander, and how does that affect like training? And I mean, can you guys even do platoon PT or anything?
Yeah. So it's tough, man. And I'll start from like when it happened, and like we shut down, man, just like the rest of the world. We still had to do accountability or whatever, but like there's some pretty not damaging, but like harmful emotional effects of an 18-year-old who just moved from Nebraska to Fort Lewis, Washington, living in the barracks alone.
Yeah, and doesn't know anybody.
Dude, and then a week later it shuts down. Like, this is real. I had like probably 15 new soldiers when it shut down.
Oh, so shit.
There was a time where it's like, you can't have like an old solution to this new problem. Mm-hmm. Like, we need to think creatively how to do this. And it was a lot of learning, man, a lot of growing. And like, it was tough, like phone apps, video, like VTCs, PT competitions using like Strava app and stuff like that. Like, that's why we made the podcast in my unit. Was like, dude, we can't have this direct connection with these soldiers right now due to social distancing and during a training shutdown. And like, we tried to do like traditional LPDs or leadership professional development sessions where a senior officer talks at you. And he's like, this is my philosophy on leadership. You're like, oh my God, dude, I'm gonna set myself on fire. You know?
And what, that's like through like all through a Zoom?
Yeah, through Zoom, exactly. Yeah. So, we started the podcast that way to get people on to look outside the military and like, hey dude, how do we solve this stuff? Like, how do we get ahead of the decision-making process?
So it was Colonel Chung the one that came up with that?
Yeah, it was
it's just a group think kind of coming together.
So we had an LPD with the University of Virginia football coach, and Colonel Chung and I talked afterwards, and we're like, we need to do something with this. Like, let's make a podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, when you guys told me that, I thought that was pretty genius, because it's easy for the military to get like, I mean, old habits die hard, right?
For sure.
And so
it moves slow too, man.
Yeah. So this is what we've been doing forever.
Yeah.
But if you just take a step back and detach a little bit, where's the world going right now?
Right.
Podcasting is a huge way of dissemination of information, and being someone that got invited on your show and kind of see the vibe and how it's produced and the energy and the conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, this is fucking genius, man. Because now he's connecting to his troops on a personal level.
Right.
And it circles back all the way to what we talked about in the beginning. Like, if you believe your leadership cares about you on a personal level, and you know them on a personal level, well, you just created a bond that is going to facilitate the mission. And it's just like, I mean, everybody feels like they're friends with Joe Rogan, including me.
Right.
Like, if I met Joe today, I'd be like,
oh, DMT and sauna.
Hey, what's up, bro? Yeah. You want to crank my sauna to 200 degrees and then go hit some jiu-jitsu?
I got some elk in the fridge.
But that's what I'm saying. We know that guy through a platform.
Exactly.
And so for you guys to be like, okay, well, this is how this platform affects people.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
Exactly.
That's fucking rad, dude.
It's interesting to see it, man. My brother's in tech. He works in tech sales. And I was talking to him, like, when COVID happened, we shut down. He's like, dude, I've been doing this for 15 years. Like, I haven't had an office in 15 years. Like, we've been decentralized well before COVID, and the Army's the big wooden ship where you spin the wheel and it like slowly catches up.
Yeah.
So it was crazy to work through that, and then like to build that podcast. And I luckily had like great leaders. You know, that guy I talked about, the MBA guy, like he did like a marshmallow challenge with the guys where they like made these apparatuses. Is that the plural apparatus? Whatever.
Apparati.
Yeah, whatever. Two infantrymen here. A spare guy, like whatever.
Yeah.
So like he these guys like made these things out of marshmallows to see who could get the biggest one and just compete. Like, just this creative solutions. Like, we're not going to be doing ambushes right now. So
yeah.
So what can we do? We can do PT.
Yeah.
Right? We can do self-development.
Was PT, I mean, you said like you use Strava app so you could confirm this person went and did this.
Yeah. You know, we started with confirmation, but like, you know, just as well as I do, like if you want compliance, like you're not going to get the maximum output from someone that you demand compliance from. You want buy-in, you want guys to want to do
Make
this.
It fun for them.
So we made competitions on the Strava app. So like platoons would be like, you know, like the most miles run.
No one's outrunning the company commander.
Dude,
right?
I broke some people off there. I probably got on my bike a few times and like made it really fast and was like, this was a run, not a bike. You know, it's not true if anyone's listening.
Okay. So we'll circle back to this, but because you're a fucking freak when it comes to running. What's the longest run unbroken you've ever done?
Unbroken? I've done a 50K. I've done a 50K.
Okay.
That's not that bad. Like,
well, it's not that good either.
No, it wasn't super fun. It wasn't super fun. And I was training pretty hard then too. So like, you know, as a company commander, I was like, man, COVID sucks. But as an athlete, I was like,
oh yeah,
COVID's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, because like, you get to. Yeah, I mean, you get to work on you. That's kind of cool, right?
And that's what I told my guys. I was like,
but you already have to have arrived at that understanding.
Absolutely. And I told them, I was like, look, we do not have the answer to this problem right now. But I will tell you, if we come out of this on the other side and you're not better than you are now, you'll have failed.
Yeah, you
will not have used this time to make yourself better.
And see, dude, I tell people this all the time. If I didn't go into the military, I would look like Chris Farley.
Sure.
Because I love pizza and I didn't know anything about working out. Like, sure, in high school, I would do like weight training and you know what I mean?
1,000 curls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I didn't know anything about fitness until I was part of something that's like, hey, you either perform or you're out of here.
Yeah.
And so it really forced me to learn about my own fitness.
Yeah.
And then what I learned is once you become really like elite level fitness, because people don't understand the military and the special operations community. I mean, they want you to be like a professional athlete.
Yeah.
You know,
athletes with guns.
Yeah. Man. And once you reach that level and then you fall below that,
oh man,
you feel it.
Yeah.
and you see it in your performance, but you also just feel it in your body. Yeah. The way you walk up a flight of stairs, like you can feel when you're on top of the world and when you've dipped below that a little bit.
100%.
But for people that haven't been built up to that level yet, it's like speaking a foreign language to them.
Absolutely.
So just like you said, those privates that showed up from Nebraska, that sure, they went through boot camp, but boot camp is a joke, dude.
It's nothing. Right.
And it's up to you as their leader to really teach them about fitness. And now the carpet's pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah.
Like it's easier said than done, man. It's going to be difficult to teach those guys without getting in the fucking mud with them, you know?
It's tough. And like I said, we did some creative stuff and, you know, probably broke protocol a few more times than, you know, I'm willing to admit live, but like, dude, you have to, and you have to get after creative solutions. And I keep saying that as just like a buzzword, but it became that. Like, if you just waited for guidance from higher, dude, it's not coming. It's not coming. Like, you need to improve during COVID. And we did. And
the thing is, higher up doesn't know what the fuck's going on either. It's new for everybody.
The CDC doesn't know. You know what I mean? Like,
you're right.
We always like, it's tough as a company commander. Cause like people look at me and they're like, well, sir, how are you coming on the vaccine? Like, my guy, I'm a captain in the Army. Like, I don't have a vaccine for you, you know? Like,
dude, that's so funny you say that because I get hit up on Instagram about all kinds of stuff now. Yeah. And I literally got in like I wouldn't even call it an argument. Like I try and avoid tiffs on the internet because I have nothing to gain from them. Right.
Right.
But a guy was getting on my case yesterday because I said something that he felt was too right wing. And he's like, you have 77,000 followers. You are a leader. What you say resonates with people. It's up to you. And it's like coming down on me because I wasn't meeting his standards. And I was like, just like you said, dude, I'm just a dude.
I'm just a guy.
I'm just a fucking guy.
I'm just a guy.
And that's what I told him. I said, dude, sometimes I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong.
Right.
Sometimes I fuck up. And I said, the one trait that I do have is if I fuck up, I'll admit it.
Right.
Right. But that's the best I can do, man. Dude, and it's funny you say that because it's the same thing. As soon as you're in any type of leadership position, and I wouldn't call like having an Instagram following a leadership position, but
you're a position of influence.
It's a position where, and with that, people have more expectations.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, dude, we're just a man.
Yeah.
Taking in all of this fucking stimuli with our eyes and ears and trying to decipher it just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may have an answer for it and sometimes you may not, you know?
If you're turning to Greg Anderson for your news sources. Look, I like you, man, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. If you're tuning into me for your fucking political references, just come to my jiu-jitsu academy.
Right. Yeah,
I can teach you to choke people. That's the one thing I'm pretty good at.
I mean, but that's it. But that's the point, though. Like that book, The Coddling of the American Mind, they talk about like people believe that there's a good and an evil, right? It's not true. There's so much in between. Like, America's generally pretty good people, and like if you just say like, well, Greg Anderson said something right wing, I hate him now. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, dude.
How did we get to this?
Yeah, it's funny that's what you respond with, because something that I've been telling people a lot lately. Because of all this division in our country, right? And I read Dan Crenshaw's book.
Yeah.
And Fortitude, right? And I liked it.
Yeah.
And I was at work. I don't remember what. It was a coworker of mine. I don't remember if I was at work or not. But he's like, fuck Dan Crenshaw. He doesn't support Second Amendment rights as strong as he should. And then as I'm like looking through Dan Crenshaw's Instagram, he catches a lot of shit, like from Second Amendment people, right? And I told him, I was like, well, listen, I understand that you don't agree with him or you don't think he represents this issue perfect, right? But if you are 85% in alignment with somebody, that's still an ally, I feel like, overall, right?
And even if not, they're not a bad person.
Yeah. And you don't need to hate that person.
Right.
I mean, obviously, Second Amendment's a tough one because it's a lot of people like you're in or you're out. It's not nuanced.
Right.
And I'm one of those people. Like, I think own anything you want. It's not up to the government. But regardless of my stance on it, if you have a different stance, I don't want to hate that person.
Dude.
Because you start creating enemies and you start having division. good luck in making anything work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I just like some of the best ideas or some of the best things I've done came from when someone disagreed with me and challenged me. And I was like, oh, maybe they are right.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah.
I tell my PLs all the time, like, you need to disagree with me. It might be uncomfortable and I might like be grumpy about it or something, but like that, it's red teaming something, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't go onto a target and be like, well, maybe the enemy's going to do this.
Yeah.
You build the enemy plan first and then you build your plan around it. So it's the same thing. Like you're troubleshooting your ideas and you're poking holes in your ideas because you don't know if you're right.
Yeah. I mean, Jocko talks about that a lot.
Yeah.
He wants his subordinate leadership to challenge him and not challenge his authority,
right?
But challenge his way of thinking.
Totally.
You know, hey, sir, I know this is your op order, but have you thought about this?
Right.
Or what if I didn't hear a contingency if this happens?
Exactly right.
And that is where operational elements, in my opinion, are the strongest.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Ramadi, dude, 22-year-old Ranger, and I was living with a bunch of unit guys.
Yeah.
And it was
wild.
like,
That's
bro,
wild.
it was nuts, dude.
Like 40-year-old unit dudes.
Yeah, a bunch of 40-year-old unit dudes. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And I got on the team because I could shoot, I could PT, and I could keep my mouth shut and my eyes open, right?
Yeah.
And Rangers actually did very well on those teams because
you knew your role.
That's a valuable asset.
Yep.
And I've talked about before, like, hey, I'm going to check the oil in the cars every morning
100%.
and the tire pressures, right? Like I'm going to do the bitch work.
Yep.
Because I know I'm the fucking new guy.
Yeah.
Right. But one thing that I saw with those guys, they had assigned leadership roles. Like he's the project manager. He's the team leader.
Right.
But it was never, and when you're out and you're operating, if the team leader says, hey, I need this element to go here and do this, guess what? That's what happens.
Yep.
But in a planning phase, it was just like, they'd even look at me. What do you think of this? What? You know,
right.
They want everybody's insight.
Right.
They want everybody's brains to be processing and coming up with solutions and questions. And it wasn't always the team leader that was necessarily being the team leader. It was whoever was most proficient at that area.
Absolutely.
You know? And I was like, oh, that's why these guys are next level, because this guy might fill a role of a saw gunner today, and tomorrow he might be team leader. And I know the unit has specific assignments within their team too, but I just felt like they drew from everybody a lot more.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you're looking for a different kind of person, you know, a different thinker. I don't know what they're looking for.
Well, nobody does except the unit sergeant major.
Right. Right. Exactly. You know? Right. And, but it's a different thing. Like you said, like every person has input, and it's important to develop that. I think even on the company level, like that private probably has input, right? Like the private carrying 120 pounds of mortars might have a better idea of how to cross load them across the mortar section.
Yeah.
You know, like it's hard for you to dictate that plan as you're 3 levels up above this guy.
Of course.
You need to trust that input.
And then the other side of the coin is if you are that private that has some insight, there's a right way to go about it. Dude. And then there's a wrong way to go about it. You know?
I'm on the balance of like, I want the truth and I'm cool with it. But like I said, I had a Ranger first sergeant in my conventional unit. Like someone would say something and I would see him look and I'd be like, hey, I'll be in my office for like 20 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Like I could feel it. It would be like a fog roll in, you know? And I'd be like, he's going to like appear out of this like a vampire.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go in my office and hide, like let him take care of the business right now.
You know, I've never really thought of that until just listening to you say that. But man, as an NCO in the regiment, the kind of respect that you get from your men and privates, it's just understood. You know what I mean? Like
it's earned, right? Like
it is earned, but at the same time, a new private comes up to you as an E5, he's going to stand at parade rest and be like, hey, Sergeant, what do you need? You know?
Dude, yes. It's a focus on those little things.
Yeah.
Like the unit, you know, ST6, like these units, they do sexy stuff. They do free fall, fast rope, whatever. But like, dude, they're vigilant, hyper vigilant with the fundamentals and the basics and the simple things.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like that new E3 who shows up to a Ranger platoon, stands at parade rest for his E5.
And like, I mean, that's part of the Ranger creed is the discipline, you know, and to be a leader and then circle back to a regular infantry unit. I mean, do you see like breakdowns in discipline and people that Yeah, you're Lieutenant so-and-so. I don't give a fuck. Like,
dude, I light people up.
Yeah.
I light them on fire for that. Like, because that's the mark of a good organization is the discipline, right? And you can see it in every single aspect, right? Like you mentioned the dry fire thing. I have the POI of the dry fire from Fort Bragg, right? Like, like I have it directly from the guy who developed it. I never see dudes going out there and dry firing.
Yeah.
And it's tough with time or whatever, but like when I see a private, like hands in his pockets, talking to an E5, dude, I light that E5 on fire.
Oh, he's the one that gets it.
He's the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's like, no, you can just call me Greg. Wrong, dude. And it's not a fear thing. It's not a, it's not like a hierarchy thing, but it's a adherence to discipline.
Yep.
And like, if you do that right, you're going to do the other things right.
And then the other side of it, and this might sound strange, but being a subordinate and you show your leader the proper courtesy and address them properly.
Yeah.
Like it feels good. And I don't know if that makes sense or not. Like even as a 39-year-old police officer, when I talk to my chief of police, hey, good morning, chief. How you doing today?
Yeah.
And a lot of people wouldn't do that. And I remember thinking like, man, he's the chief. Like I felt like, and I liked my chief.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had a good relationship with him. So it feels good to give that guy the respect that he has earned.
Yeah.
You know? But I think a lot of people that have never lived that life in the military think you're like sucking his dick or something. And it's like, no.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
that's part of being part of an organization that has rank and structures and a chain of command.
Yep. And that's right. Like when I talk to my sergeants, I'm not like, hey, what's up, Greg?
Yeah.
It's like, Sergeant Anderson, what's up?
Yeah.
Sir, what's going on? We have that. We have that because we can always scale it back. We can always talk.
Yeah.
We can always have a beer after work and talk.
Well, I like that you said that because that was something that I also think is important is like professional courtesy and understanding the rank structure and appreciating that for what it is. But part of, like we said in the beginning, is knowing your people on a personal level.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you do have to cut loose a little bit.
Dude, yeah.
And I had barbecues with the team where you're there as an E5 and you have your private with his wife and like, when my private's wife is there, he doesn't have to stand a parade rest for me. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly right, man.
And so it's nuanced.
Yep.
But if you just apply a little bit of common sense,
self-awareness,
it should all come together,
Yeah. Like if you're the guy, there's a balance. People are listening to this guy. They're like, this guy's definitely like a, 80-second careerist. Like I want to make it nothing wrong with 80-second, great unit. But like, if there's a spectrum and like, the right end is like really, really rigid, really robotic. Dude, I'm on the far left end.
Yeah.
I'll have beers with my NCOs, like call it fraternization or whatever. But like the best bonds that I have built are after work at a barbecue.
Yeah. And what I've found is when you build those strong relationships, barbecuing and having beers on Saturday night, guess what? Their respect that they show to you and the military courtesy come Monday morning is stronger, if anything.
Way stronger. I in my first company, I was super close with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came over to this company, I have like the recce platoon. So I have snipers. I got a hold of one of my staff sergeants and I was like, hey man, can't ask a lot of questions. I need you to come to snipers. He's like, no problem.
Yeah.
I'll be there tomorrow. Just complete understanding. And it's built through that trust there. Like, have we wrestled in the field before? Can neither confirm nor deny, but his neck will, I tore his ass up a little bit. But that's that bond that we built beyond like the Dr. Dan robot idea. And like, I've been fortunate to be able to do that. And like, if you miss that, dude, you're missing the point. You're missing the forest of the trees in the military and you're going to have a pretty shitty experience.
Yeah.
Straight up.
No, that, the whole wrestling in the woods thing.
Oh man.
It's, I talk about this often, knowing how to fight in both a personal, like dynamic with relationships and a professional.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
For sure.
Especially if you're who's a company commander of a bunch of fucking knuckle draggers, right? At the end of the day, you have captain bars sewn on your shirt and you're the commander and this is your position. But at the end of the day, if your guys know you're a savage,
dude,
roger that.
I'm telling you.
Like that's a different thing. Dude, we've only been civilized for a couple hundred years.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If that.
Before that, it was like,
you were in the regiment in the 90s. I would argue that wasn't civilized.
But dude, I mean, I had a platoon sergeant fucking punch a squad leader one night. And I mean, all of us were fucking just shocked, you know? And he's like, I'm the fucking big dog around here. You understand that, you motherfuckers? I'm the big dog.
Love that.
And we were all like, what the fuck, dude? Right. Like, what the fuck just happened?
I bet no one asked if he was the big dog after that, though, you know? Like,
but dude, like sometimes going outside of that typical like military courtesy, like sometimes it calls for it, dude.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Now, in this specific incident, we were deployed to Fort Campbell and there was copious amounts of alcohol involved.
Right.
So that wasn't like this fucking glaring aspect or example of leadership, but it just makes me think is like, sometimes you have to go outside of the rules to show the men who you are.
Yeah.
You know?
That's exactly it, man. There's a human side to this. You know, if you are the uniform, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. Like this uniform comes off, man.
Yeah. Well, and I always used to say, I can go to clothing and sales and buy a full bird colonel pin.
Doesn't make you a colonel.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's what's behind the uniform.
That's exactly right. And
you know,
if you are unwilling to show that human side to your guys, and look, I'm not saying like, go up to him, like I said, like, Greg, what's up, brother? Like, let's go get blasted in Tacoma this weekend. But like talking to them about their it's just so basic. People listening to this are probably like, you just talk to the guys? Like, yeah,
that's basically
pretty much it. Right. Like, it's okay. Like,
fuck, dude, this conversation is making me want to go to OCS.
Dude,
I got my degree now.
I've got a platoon for you today. I got a platoon for you today. I'll give you the scout platoon right now.
I got to get my run times down, dude.
Yeah, it's true. There's no jiu-jitsu in the ACFT, so.
Fuck, dude. Well, dude, we're about at 3 hours. Something that I like to do when I have guests on is just give them some of the product from our sponsorships.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
And so these are Paleo Valley grass-fed beef sticks.
Right on.
And they're legendary, dude.
Thank you.
They're fucking awesome. And then it's funny because one of the other sponsors is Cured Nutrition CBD. You probably can't do it. You can't do it.
No, that's all you. You can double down on that and float tonight, homie. That's all you.
Bro, it's 0 THC.
The
CBD is derived from hemp. It even says THC free right on it.
It sounds like you're gonna make me pop hot on a UA. you're like, just trust me. I'm fucking with you.
No, bro.
I appreciate it, man.
When it comes to your professional career, do the opposite. Do not trust me.
Right.
But yeah, you can take the beef sticks.
I appreciate it, man.
Those are legendary. What about cigars?
I will absolutely.
Okay, so this isn't a podcast sponsorship, but anybody that sends the show stuff just out of appreciation, I like to in turn give them a shout out. So it's called Gadsden Cigar Companies, and they sent us a box. And for the next however many shows I do, well, we have some left. I'm just giving a couple out to the guests.
Dude, awesome. I appreciate it, man.
That's awesome. So yeah, before we wrap this up, is there anything else, like any other topics you wanted to touch on or anything on your mind?
No, man, I'm really grateful to do this. This is really cool. Talking through this with you and like seeing how the Army was and what it morphed into, and just people need to have more conversations.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I don't want to say like the human condition and society or whatever, but like, dude, we just need to talk more.
I think so, man. I think that is, this is why this platform, and I'm not specifically talking about my podcast, but just podcasting in general. Yeah. That's why it's blowing up.
Yeah.
Because there's something rewarding about listening to two people sit down and really get into the weeds. I mean, at what other time in your life in the last decade have you sat down with another man across a table and spoke for 2 hours and 57 minutes straight?
In his bedroom.
In my bedroom. That's right. With cameras pointed at you.
Right.
But no, it's a different thing.
Right.
And like, my buddy Toby Folk, who is in 2nd Battalion with me, he's been one of my best friends since the year 2000. And he's done a couple shows. And when we're done, it's like, one of the first things he said to me is like, bro, like, I don't care if this gets one download.
Yeah.
Just the fact that we sat down and got to communicate like this with each other. He's like, we haven't done that since we fucking lived in fucking Tillicum together, you know? Right. Like, and so this platform, it just speaks to people.
Yeah.
And it's cool because you can sit down with guys like my buddy Toby, who I've been best friends with for fucking 2 decades, or a dude like you that I met a month ago.
Right.
And still really talk in depth and like a lot of different aspects of life and leadership and military experience and on and on and on. It's just been fucking awesome.
And that's the point, man. Like when you talk to people, you realize that there are commonalities. Like you realize you have more in common with people than you would have initially thought. So like, it's good to put the phone down and talk to somebody for 3 hours, man. This has been awesome. Cool,
man. Well, I guess the last thing is you referenced your podcast. Go ahead if you want to give it a shout out, just if people are interested in seeing.
So Lancer Brigade, I'm here unofficially, but the leadership experience on Apple Podcasts, we had Greg on, we have a lot of authors. Colonel Chung is the guy who runs it. And it's just been a really cool experience to be able to like look outside the Army for certain answers that we can find like internal. So encourage everyone to check it out, and would love to have you on again.
Cool, man. We'll definitely have to do that.
Yeah.
And, if you're a private in this COVID era military and you may not be getting the guidance that you may be seeking or that you deserve, dude, go check that out, because there are officers out there that are thinking and coming up with solutions. And just seeing how you guys run that podcast and listening to it, it's real powerful. So I would recommend it for sure.
I appreciate it, man. It's been rewarding.
Well, cool, man. We're right at 3 hours and I think it's time to wrap it up, but I appreciate you coming on, and next time you're in town, we should do it again.
Absolutely, man.
All right, man.
It's been a blast.